Magtiwala ka ng buong puso sa Panginoon at huwag kang manalig sa iyong sariling karunungan. Alalahanin mo ang Panginoon sa lahat ng iyong ginagawa at ituturo niya sa iyo ang tamang landas. Kawikaan, Kabanata 3, talata 5-6.
Sa ngalan ng Ama, ng Anak, at Espiritu Santo. Dakilang Diyos na may lalang ng langit at lupa, patuloy po kaming dumadalangin sa kaligtasan ng lahat mula sa laganap pa ring pandemya na sumusubog sa lahat sa amin sa kapanahonan ito. Dalangin namin ang pagsama mo sa amin, 10 ng aming mga pamilya. Samo namin ang proteksyon mo at paggabay na mapangalagaan namin ang aming mga sarili at maging ang aming mga kapwa manggagawa.
Sa araw na ito, amin pong ipinagdiriwang ang ika-30 taong anibersaryo ng Small Business Corporation at hiling namin ang iyong paggabay at pagsama. Pagtagumpayin mo po ang mga kaganapan sa araw na ito at sa bawat bahagi ng aming gagawin, mabigyan ka nawa namin ng higit na kaluwalhatian. Sa kabuuan ng SB Corporation, magampanan nawa namin ang pagkatawag mo sa amin tungo sa ikatatag at ikalalago ng bawat negosyanteng Pilipino. Gabayan ninyo po kami na magampanan namin sa lahat ng oras ang aming mandato bilang kabalikat ng mga micro, small and medium enterprises sa lahat ng dako ng ating bansa.
Maihatid nawa namin sa pagtutulungan ng bawat isa ang serbisyong kinakailangan upang makabangon muli ang mga negosyanteng Pilipino. Kasiyan ninyo po ang leader ng aming bansa, kasama ng lahat ng mga sangay at ahensya ng pamahalaan, kabilang ang kabuuan ng Board of Directors at Management Committee.
Marami pong salamat na kami ay iyong pinatatag sa loob ng 30 taon at patuloy na pinagtitibay at pinalalawak. Pagyamanin mo po at palaguin ang Small Business Corporation at pagkalooban ng marami pang dekada ng paglilingkod sa bawat negosyanteng Pilipino.
At sa pangalan ni Jesus, ito po ang aming samot dalangin.
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 Amen.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang mag-ibig, helas ng sinakanan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, kuya ka ng magiting, sa manluluping, di ka pasisigil, sa nagatang tutok sa simoy at sa langit ng pagaw, ay hinatang tulad, awit sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nagtitindig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan, ang ay di magtitindig. Lumalang araw ng buwan,
Good afternoon, everyone. This afternoon culminates the 30th anniversary celebration of Small Business Corporation and MSME Week celebration. I'm Carlo Lorenzo, your host for today. As the financing arm of the Department of Trade and Industry, SB Corp has been in the forefront in providing assistance to our micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MSMEs, as the program implementer of the Bayanihan Cares, or COVID-19 assistance to restart enterprises, which makes 8.08 billion pesos available for MSMEs, tourism businesses, cooperatives, hospitals, and repatriated or displaced overseas Filipino workers affected by COVID-19 pandemic. To date, SB Corp has approved 32,659 loan applications. These correspond to a total loan amount of 5.1 billion pesos, with the theme, "The New Normal is Digital Business Solution for MSMEs." This afternoon's virtual event aims to empower MSMEs with practical tools and valuable knowledge that will equip them, or all of us, not only in adapting to the new normal, but also in the ever-changing times of the digital era. And it is such an honor that today's program is graced with a message from no other than His Excellency, President Rodrigo Roa Duterte.
My warmest greetings to the Small Business Corporation as you celebrate its 30th anniversary. This milestone is a testament of your commitment in enabling MSMEs to prosper and contribute to the realization of our national development agenda. May you continue revitalizing our economy through the infusion of capital in small business, thriving industries. Together, let us further accelerate economic growth for the Philippines. Mabuhay po kayo.
His Excellency President Rodrigo Roa Duterte, thank you very much. Now, to welcome all our guests and participants, I'd like to call on the ever-energetic and one of the most hard-working undersecretaries of the Department of Trade and Industry, the acting chairperson of Small Business Corporation, Undersecretary Blasila Lantayona.
Thank you very much, Carlo. To the Department of Trade and Industry Secretary, Secretary Ramon Lopez, to SB Corporation President and CEO Maria Luna Cacanando, and to her very hardworking and dedicated team. To the esteemed members of the Board of Directors of SB Corporation, to the Undersecretary of the Department of Tourism, Undersecretary Roberto Alabado III, DTI Assistant Secretary Mary Jean Pacheco of Digital Philippines and E-Commerce Office, to the DTI Regional Operations Group Assistant Secretaries Defna Dunaga, ASEC Aster Caberte, and ASEC Dominic Tolentino, to the Regional Directors, Assistant Regional Directors, and Provincial Directors, to the DTI BISMED Director Jerry Clavisillas, to the esteemed resource persons, Dr. Francis Mark Kimba of PIDS, Madam Aileen Clemente of Women in Tourism, Dr. Vivian Sarabia of Sarabia Optical, and Mr. Vic Tria of PLDT, to our partners from the different government agencies, private sector, academe, and the media, to our dear MSMEs, ladies and gentlemen, magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. SB Corporation celebrated its 30th anniversary in July of 2021, or just last month, no doubt it has accumulated many milestones and accolades since its creation. However, I am of the opinion that amongst this, there is one that truly stands out because of the fact that it is a significant departure from its usual pre-pandemic business process. Now, after 30 years of existence, we are proud to say that SB Corporation has crossed the digital divide. More specifically, it has transitioned its manual evaluation of loan applications and loan releasing to online. And because of this, SB Corporation has practically increased its loan approval capacity from a few hundreds per month to more than 2,000 per month. Just like the Philippine e-commerce adoption, we could safely say that the digital transformation of SB Corporation was accelerated by the global health crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, today we will be hearing, among other things, the digital journey of SB Corporation, particularly on how the soul-searching kind of an exercise, which was triggered by the pandemic, led SB Corporation to a crucial decision to reposition its resources in order to be agile enough to respond to the needs of the MSMEs who were amongst the hardest hit by this health crisis. And of course, on its partnership with the different agencies, public and private organizations, to reach out to more MSMEs and to strengthen its digital finance ecosystem. As it enters its third decade of existence, SB Corporation has definitely become a more mature organization with a better understanding of the MSME, its persona, so to speak, and its needs. Moreover, it is now in a much better position to help the MSMEs because it was entrusted with more funds to respond to their needs. New products like staples, which we will be launching today, is just an example of how SB Corporation can extend its assistance to the still underserved subsector amongst the MSMEs. SB Corporation is where the MSMEs go in order to grow. The board of directors salutes the management team under the leadership of President and CEO Luna Cacanando for inspiring the men and women of SB Corp to give their best to serve the financing needs of the Filipino MSMEs. May you continue to rise up to the challenge of finding solutions to MSME financing needs for them to survive and grow even in this new normal kind of an environment. So on that note, let me warmly welcome you all to this happy event. And once again, magandang hapon po sa ating lahat.
Thank you very, very much, Yusek. And now to move on, we have our guest of honor who doesn't need much introduction. He is one of the busiest cabinet members. In 1994, Secretary Ramon Lopez established his career in the business sector, working for more than 2 decades as top executive of RFM Corporation until his appointment as DTI Secretary in 2016. While engaged with his private sector commitments, Secretary Lopez also launched Go Negosyo, an advocacy group promoting trade and entrepreneurship to small and micro business owners, PWDs, out-of-school youth, and other marginalized sectors, where he held the position of executive director for the past 11 years. Secretary Lopez graduated in 1981 with a BA Economics degree from the University of the Philippines and completed the graduate program for development economics at Williams College in Massachusetts, USA in 1988. Friends, help me welcome the Honorable Secretary Ramon Lopez.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everyone. To our President Luna Cacanando of SB Corp. SB Corp celebrating their anniversary. EVP COO Santi Lim, also of SB Corp. Ms. Evelyn Felias of the IT SB Corp. Of course, to our hardworking USEC Bless, Nantayona, USEC Alabado of the Department of Tourism, our assistant secretaries in the Regional Operations Group, ASEC Aster, ASEC Dempna, ASEC Dominic, and of course ASEC Jean Pacheco of the OSEC, Director Jerry Clavicillas, to our regional directors, ARDs, PDs, and the DTI family, to our guests and partners, Mr. Victor Tria of PLDT Enterprise, Dr. Francis Mark Kimba of PIDS, our good friend, Dr. Vivian Sarabia of the Sarabia Optical, and Miss Eileen Clemente, Women in Tourism, fellow workers in government, private sector partners, ladies and gentlemen, magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Again, greetings to the SB Corp family as you celebrate your 30th anniversary. Thank you to SB Corp as well as its institutional partners and the different stakeholders in the micro SME sector, development sector, in giving this strong push for digitalization in order to adapt to the new normal. The COVID-19 pandemic has forced all of us to rethink the way we live, and this has resulted in major transformations in the way we do business, including changing business models and processes. For many, this also involves a pivot from offline or face-to-face transactions to online transactions. We'd like to cite the example of SB Corp in understanding the importance of digital adoption. They digitalized their loan application so that they could still serve our micro SMEs despite the pandemic and the limitations in mobility brought about by lockdowns. And it is not only in terms of online application, but up to the loan release process. This has tremendously cut the red tape and the long period by which the loan is released before to the borrowers through physical checks. Moreover, they've been providing support to their borrowers to strengthen their businesses in their pivot to digitalization. But even as the pandemic has catalyzed the rapid acceleration of our country's digital transformation, our developing digital economy will also become the source of Philippines' productivity growth and recovery from the pandemic. As President Rodrigo Roa Duterte has said, the Philippines wants to be an active participant in the global digital economy, end of quote. More importantly, the promotion of financial technology and digitalization will prepare and empower our micro SMEs with the technologies of the 4IR. Last September 2020, the DTI e-commerce group, headed by ASEC Chin, conducted a baseline survey to determine the level of digitalization of our micro SMEs and compare it with the ASEAN data. Results showed that the majority of the respondents, or around 73%, need capacity building related to digitizing their business. Skills that they need to acquire vary by region and by e-commerce engagement. For example, those who are engaged in e-commerce prefer to focus more on improving digital skills, while those who are not engaged in e-commerce prefer skills on how to get started with an online business. Among the top needed skills identified by respondents are financial, marketing, content management, the basics of e-commerce, and starting an online business. Another thing to consider, especially during the pandemic, is that digitalization ensures that micro SMEs business activities can continue safely. For example, restaurants and hotels can do this by conforming with the minimum health protocols through QR codes, as well as utilizing smartphone applications so that customers can order food or request for delivery or takeouts. Digitalization also helps micro SMEs to increase productivity, reduce costs, offer and or diversify new products and services, improve competitiveness, and increase sales and revenues by managing transactions at a distance. We can also deliver goods and services efficiently, facilitate access to financial products, and enable them to engage with new and existing customers. Following the results of the survey, our e-commerce group is now in the process of crafting modules specific to the needs of micro SMEs based on their level of digitalization through the Digital Transformation Initiative for Micro SMEs. Providing internet connectivity and related business support services through the first pilot of the Innovation Hubs and Satellite Network will also realize the vision of the E-commerce Philippines Roadmap 2022 of micro SMEs fully participating in the digital economy. The EO 127 signed by President Duterte last March 2021 that liberalized the inclusive access to satellite services will soon be implemented with the finalization of the IRR, and that process is being led by the DICT. This is a great equalizer, as this will empower the geographically isolated areas with interconnectivity, giving everyone, as in everyone, the access to internet and information. This, to me, in the present day, is a basic human right, the access to internet and information, as this will aid in a more inclusive progress and prosperity. Meanwhile, recognizing the challenges of financial inclusion will help us to address the gaps in micro SMEs' access to finance. In particular, we have to link them to the financial mainstream where they can access safe, affordable, and innovative financial services to harness their growth and potential. Clearly, the concerted efforts of the government and the private sector are needed to help micro SMEs recover and rebuild and eventually thrive beyond this pandemic. Lastly, the adoption of digitalization in all sectors of the economy supports the DTI's innovation agenda. Despite limitations in our technology infrastructure, more micro SMEs are conducting their businesses online amidst the pandemic. This is why their digitalization plays a crucial role in developing an inclusive and sustainable economy. To this end, DTI has been implementing programs and policies that would help to facilitate the transition of micro SMEs into digital and making sure they're properly equipped in the process. The programs in our 7Ms framework, which includes mindset, mastery, mentoring, money, machines, market access, and models of negosyo, also already include digitalization as well. For example, we launched our DTI Negosyo Center online portal last June to promote ease of doing business and facilitate access to business services and information by making available online all the services provided by our brick-and-mortar negosyo centers. Furthermore, our business name registration, BNRS system, next generation or next gen, is an online three-step process: apply, pay, and download. That helps proprietors register their business names within 8 minutes. This process can be even experienced through your mobile phones. This is probably why the number of business names registered increased by 44% last year, from around 637,000 transactions in 2019 to around 916,000 transactions in 2020. From the start of the year to as of today, there are around 658,000 total business names registered, and there are currently more than 3.7 million active business names registered in the BNRS from 2016 to present. Meanwhile, our Control plus B's Reboot Now program offers a series of free webinars that are targeted to micro SMEs who need to transform their business digitally. Likewise, the PTTC Global MSME Academy offers training and workshops with over 300 modules on digitalization and innovation. Our Kapatid Mentor Me, which provides mentorship to micro SMEs, is now online to ensure participants' safety due to the pandemic. And at the height of the community quarantine, we consolidated online tools to help micro SMEs find digital solutions to help them cope with the challenges of the pandemic. In fact, we've also added mentorship to the DTI Negosyo Center online portal. And on this, we are being helped by our Angelpreneurs community. What's more, we've been providing greater access to markets through online platforms, from our virtual National Trade Fair to the online channels of our OTOP Philippine Hub, as well as the Go Locals partnership with e-commerce platforms like Shopeenas, Shopee, Lazada, and the like. Lastly, we've updated the e-commerce Philippines roadmap to take all this into consideration. The 2022 roadmap's goal is to create a virtuous cycle wherein we adopt innovation and make sure that they open possibilities to further creativity and inventiveness applied across various industries. To close, a digital Philippines is already happening, accelerated during this time of President Duterte, but we are confident that our country can handle this transition only if we work together through a whole of society approach where businesses, industries, and people move as one. We can build back better as an entirely transformed digital nation where our people can enjoy a more comfortable and greater quality of life. Maraming salamat po at mabuhay tayong lahat.
That was a very inspiring message from our beloved Trade Secretary. Thank you very much for all the updates and statistics that give us hope that there is something happening, something to look forward to also. Thank you also for telling us that there are so many other things up and coming. Thank you. And now for all the viewers out there, you have a chance to ask your questions for our speakers. Just type your questions in the chat box and write the name of the speaker you want to ask. And then please include your name and institution of your company where you're from. Again, you have the chance to ask your questions to our speakers. Just type them in the chat box. Now, I am excited, really excited to tell you that there will be videos to be shown throughout this program that will showcase the different testimonials of MSMEs like you, MSMEs who have encountered so many different types of struggles during the pandemic, and their testimonials will just show you how they've adjusted to the new normal and how digitalization of SB Corp aligned with their efforts to be more resourceful, and stories that I hope can help inspire you. And here's one of those videos. Let's watch this.
Before 2019, the bulk of the business was more fumigation services and pest control. When the pandemic hit, there were actually sites that were closed. So altogether closed na. So we had to lay off. But we strove to continue operating as best as we could. But through the lockdowns, our operations were down to just 30%.
2020 nagkaroon po tayo ng lockdown. And then dun sa lockdown pong iyon is nag-close po, hindi siya temporarily. Totally close po talaga yung souvenir shop kasi ang main customers namin is the tourists. So totally close hanggang ngayon po, sarado siya, almost 1 year na siya mahigit. So ang nag-ooperate na lang is the printing, which is the Blue R, the branch 1 and the head office.
The loan that we were able to receive from SB Corp helped our cash flow a lot. Yung pagpasok ng cash na yun sa amin, napakalaking tulong talaga. And I'm sure that not just for us, but for all other enterprises who enjoyed the benefit of receiving a loan from SB Corporation.
Nakapag-avail po kami ng loan kay SB Corp pre-pandemic. It is a multiple head embroidery machine which is nagagamit namin siya sa mga offices, schools, and then government agencies and other mga events na nagpapaborda.
In terms of business principles, you must learn how to pivot when going through a crisis. Think outside the box and go out of your comfort zone ba. No matter how small you are or how big you are, you must always have a business continuity plan in place na detailed talaga. So those are the things that I learned operationally and also business-wise.
Number one po is yung pagiging back to basic namin. Nung nagkaroon ng pandemic, kailangan is mag-back to basic tayo na minimizing our losses, minimizing our wastage, yan po. And then the restructuring or reconstruction of our democracies, our mission, vision, and objectives na in-line namin kay situation na meron tayong pandemic. And one thing is, yung importante yung building a team. So during pandemic, nagpa-team building po kami para magkaroon kami ng unity within the team. Kasi without our employees or without them, hindi namin kakayanin the owner alone na para lumaban or mag-recover dun sa nangyaring kalugihan ng negosyo.
Our first presenter is a research fellow at the Philippine Institute for Development Studies and director of Philippine Apex Study Center Network. He has worked on a number of research topics, including agriculture, trade, and rural development. His current research interest is in innovation activity of local firms. He has participated in roundtable discussion issues about trade, industrial development, innovation, and e-commerce. He obtained his master's in international development from the International University of Japan. He obtained another MA and his PhD in development economics from the National Graduate Institute for Policy Studies in Tokyo, Japan. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Dr. Francis Mark Kimba.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Okay. Can you see my slide? No? Okay. Let me try to share my screen. All right, so can you see my slide? Is it now visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, yes, sir. Great, thank you. So before I begin, let me thank and congratulate the SB Corp for the opportunity to talk to everyone, first for organizing this forum, and again, also thank you for the opportunity to talk to everyone this afternoon. It is both an honor and a pleasure to be in the company of this group of speakers, knowledgeable about our MSMEs, especially those private sector representatives who are very much we learn from their experiences, who are the backbone of our industry. So for today, I will try to present some data, some statistics on how ready are we and where we are in this digitalization process. So let us start by understanding how many firms have already started engaging in the digital economy. So what I am presenting here is based on the, okay, let me try to, all right. So this is actually based on the Philippine Statistics Authority Survey on Innovation and Communication Technology. So the official statistics on e-commerce adoption. It's a bit dated, so it's only pre-pandemic, but let me try to present other statistics from other studies. So to understand how many firms in the Philippines have already started engaging in the digital economy, we look at this data. Based on the PSA SICT, we can say that the average proportion of firms utilizing e-commerce in the country has improved from 14% in 2013 to 17.7% in 2017. A slight increase, but a significant increase nonetheless. So the table shows you that industries with the highest proportion of e-commerce firms are in the electricity, gas, steam, and air conditioning. So that's actually the utility side. The financial and insurance activities, so the financial side. We also see a lot of e-commerce adopters in the real estate, and also in the services side, the arts, entertainment, and recreation services. Together with this, another significant share would be the professional, scientific, and technical services at 29.2%. So again, the services sector is not trailing behind the manufacturing sector in terms of e-commerce adoption. But this is before the pandemic. So in mid-2020, let me just cite the survey by Epson, who commissioned a survey among the Philippine SMEs, and they found that 55% of the respondents reported being at the very early stages of digital transformation. And so we see that this trend is actually increasing. So it's being accelerated. This is promising because this suggests that e-commerce adoption is experiencing an increasing trend since 2013. But now let us look at what has happened because of the pandemic. So the adoption of the e-commerce among Philippine firms was accelerated by the COVID-19 pandemic and the movement restrictions induced by it. Figure 1 shows that the number of registered online businesses soared from just 1,848 firms as of March 2020 to 86,726 firms from April to December of 2020. This translates to an increase of about 47 times in less than a year. And the Department of Trade and Industry expects that this will reach about 750,000 by the end of this year and 1 million by 2022. Meanwhile, the center figure shows that e-commerce usage increased during the ECQ, so that would be the middle bar, where movement restrictions were widely enforced. These gains, however, were retained even after the ECQ was lifted in June 2020. And this suggests that e-commerce behavior is no longer just a temporary effect brought about by movement restrictions, but is already an indication of how the new normal will be, in which transactions will be done largely through digital means. And then the last figure provides a similar story, where 41% of survey respondents saying that they purchased more online because of the pandemic. Interestingly, there are still a number of respondents. 21% said that they purchased less online. 20% reported that they do not really make any online purchase. So I think this is an area where there's still more to be done. These gains in e-commerce adoption actually complements the Philippines' relatively open digital trade environment. An assessment using the Regional Digital Trade Indicator Integration Index that I have done with a colleague in PIDS shows that the Philippines received an overall score of 0.342 in 2020, and this score is better than the regional average of 0.420 as shown in Figure 4. This places the Philippines at par with regional neighbors such as Malaysia, Lao PDR, and Brunei Darussalam. Meanwhile, Table 2 shows you that during the same year, the Philippines performed best in 3 pillars. So Pillar 1 on tariffs and trade defense, Pillar 6 on cross-border data policies, and Pillar 8 on intermediary liability and content access. All of these pillars scored less than 0.2, thus indicating a non-restrictive environment. And then in contrast, there are some areas where we can do better. So Pillar 2 on public procurement, Pillar 3 on investment, Pillar 5 on infrastructure and competition. These 3 pillars scored above 0.610. So these pillars are characterized to be strongly restrictive. And why is this important? So the Philippines' relatively open digital trade environment, coupled by the increasing trend in e-commerce adoption among the Philippine businesses, would indicate that the Philippines is ready to engage with data-driven businesses in the Asia Pacific. So e-commerce and data-driven businesses, so there's really a good link between these two. And our environment, our digital trade environment is ready to support such engagements. So the pandemic has really shown us that MSMEs need to digitalize in order to survive and navigate the new normal. So our environment and the trends for consumption and e-commerce are really pushing our MSMEs to undertake digitalization. But their digital transformation must be supported by government through policies and programs that specifically targets their needs. And we have heard a very interesting discussion by Secretary Mon Lopez on this. But then why should MSMEs adopt e-commerce? So aside from the environment and the potential for the growth of e-commerce, there are a number of other reasons why. And this is actually the result of our study in 2019 using the SICT 2015. So the SICT 2015 showed that MSMEs can benefit a lot from adopting e-commerce. For instance, 78.3% of the respondents mentioned that adopting e-commerce reduced the transaction time, and while 69.1% said that they were able to reduce their marketing time. So other benefits would include lowering business costs at 55.7% of the respondents, keeping pace with the competitors, 62% of the respondents, and even increasing quality of customer service and the ability to target customers individually, providing specialized services to customers at roughly 63%. So there are a number of benefits depending on the type of business that you have, that would allow you to really improve your businesses through the adoption of e-commerce. And how can the government help? So some ways where the government can help MSMEs adopt e-commerce would include these four. So first is that the government can help MSMEs by strengthening their awareness in data security and support the firm's capability to protect their e-commerce platform. In fact, the IPOFIL reported that counterfeiting and piracy reports and complaints surged to 121 in 2020, thereby surpassing the 100 complaints that the IPOFIL received from 2016 to 2019, which even took into account all other types of infringement. So there is going to be a need to be more security aware, especially when we adopt e-commerce. The government can also help MSMEs by increasing their digital awareness and knowledge of ICT. A study by myself and Mr. Silvin Calizo in 2019 has shown that there is a positive correlation between ICT use in the firm and e-commerce adoption, which means that firms that are already regularly using ICT in their operations would be much more ready to adopt e-commerce than those who do not regularly use ICT in their operations. Third, government can also provide access to finance for firms, and this is where SB Corp can enter, seeking to adopt e-commerce. Access to computers and having a reliable internet connection is foundational to e-commerce adoption. Thus, to promote participation in e-commerce, there is a need to ensure that firms have access to these private goods, which would require financial support. Even amid the pandemic, a study by AIM has shown that an overwhelming majority of respondent MSMEs do not actually require large amounts to resume operations. Almost 69% needed less than 100,000 pesos. So a small amount can go a long way. Lastly, the government must ensure that there is a reliable quality of ICT infrastructure available, not only in metropolitan areas, but also in rural areas where access to internet services can be quite challenging. So data using the survey on ICT 2015 has shown that about 3/4 of e-commerce firms are located in Luzon, primarily in the NCR, in the National Capital Region, which accounted for 44.3% of total e-commerce firms in the country. So NCR's periphery Central Luzon and Calabarzon accounted for a combined 23.8%. So yeah, and it's very promising that Secretary Mon Lopez has mentioned about the use of the satellites to provide internet access. So apart from government support, MSMEs and the government can also utilize the accomplishments of the APEC Boracay Action Agenda to globalize MSMEs in order to digitalize and internationalize our MSMEs. So what is this APEC BAA or the APEC Boracay Agenda to globalize MSMEs in 2015? This is actually the Philippine initiative when we hosted APEC back in 2015. The BAA recognizes that MSMEs are significant contributors of economic growth, trade, employment, and poverty alleviation, which means that their internationalization is key to realizing inclusive growth and development. So in order to nationalize MSMEs, the BAA identified 8 priority actions that APEC could focus on from 2016 to 2020. And you can see here that priority action 6 is actually about supporting the digital economy. So one of the BAA's priority action focuses on the digitalization of MSMEs, as I have mentioned. And some of the learnings that can be taken from the BAA projects include these 8. First, it is important to promote MSMEs digitalization and use of e-commerce. Why? Because these are the main mechanisms that can help MSMEs access international markets. Unfortunately, MSMEs' utilization of these tools and technologies is quite low relative to large companies. Second, we know that we should also improve ICT and digital infrastructure in order to support MSMEs' internationalization. Related to this would be the need for further indicators on access, availability, and the use of digital infrastructure. Third, let us examine the MSME's use of fintech and other digital financing platforms. Fintech has actually been proven to deliver a series of benefits related to liberalizing financial services by creating new ways to interact with financial service providers. Digital financing platforms are equally good because it helps MSMEs connect with financiers, suppliers, and buyers. Fourth, we also know that conducting training workshops to reduce MSMEs' vulnerability to cyber threats is important. For instance, how should economies protect customer data and internet security for MSMEs, and at the same time foster cross-border e-commerce norms that facilitate e-commerce between MSMEs? Fifth, we should simplify administrative procedures through e-government, something like what SB Corp has done, to increase MSMEs' e-commerce participation. So we can do this by improving regulatory systems and information dissemination on various laws and policies, essentially increasing transparency and access to information in the region. Sixth, we can promote MSMEs that are not only digital but also smart, interconnected, and green. Basically, we should recognize that yes, developing economies can have access to the fourth industrial revolution's technologies, but MSMEs' adoption of these technologies can only be made possible through capacity building, especially from developed economies. These kinds of MSMEs are the MSMEs of the future and what we should invest on. Seventh, we must also provide strong support for women-led MSMEs through capacity building on e-commerce and ICT for social entrepreneurship, including sharing information, experiences, best practices, and business opportunities through workshops and the like. Lastly, it is important to encourage women-led MSMEs to support each other through in-house programs led by women in inclusive business. One of the issues raised in the BAA is that women participation in business is actually constrained by oneself, their own family, business organization, and even the sector or industry they belong in, which can be quite discouraging and stifling to women entrepreneurs. So the BAA has also produced a number of tools that can help MSMEs internationalize, and I present here 4. So the sources are here, so for those interested, they can actually go to this website and try to use these tools to support your MSMEs. As a final word, given all the things that we have discussed, so what have I shown you? First, that there's an increasing trend in e-commerce adoption by the Philippine establishments pre-pandemic and catalyzed further by the adaptations to COVID-19 restrictions. Second, e-commerce behavior is no longer just a temporary effect brought about by movement restrictions, but it's already an indication of how the new normal will be. Third, relatively open digital trade environment of the country, supporting e-commerce and digital transactions, both here and abroad. And fourth, the availability of tools and opportunities here and abroad through the BAA to support MSMEs. So given all of these things, we can say that with the right support from government that we have heard from Secretary Lopez and the projects and the programs being implemented by SB Corp, which address the issues of awareness, infrastructure, financing, and security, MSMEs will definitely be ready for digital adoption and for competing in the Asia-Pacific region, because the environment and the support systems would enable them to do so. So that would be my presentation. So thank you very much. And also I am presenting here the references for those who are interested. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kimba. And we have a question for you.
Okay, let me try to end. How to? Okay, stop share. Okay. Yes.
All right, there you go. Hello, Dr. Kimba. This is Carlo.
Hello. Hi, Carlo.
Hi. We have a question here from Carlo J. Evardone from Taguig City University, and he asks, how can small enterprises position their business in this digital age, considering the problem on the pandemic? Are there actual specific steps that you can actually give, or specific steps that you can empower those who are watching right now? That's a good question from Carlo J. Everdoni.
Okay, so that's a very good question. I really appreciate the question. It's just that I am an academic, so I haven't really experienced how do you like a small business, and we have here a lot in the forum a number of small business and entrepreneurs who are more knowledgeable on how they actually have done it. So maybe to me, I will just tell you the theory. No? So what would be the theory regard how would you do this? So the idea is really to be first go over the hurdle of the cultural barrier. I'm not saying that you don't know how to do it, you don't know who to approach, or you don't have, or you're not really interested on adopting e-commerce. So a business needs to be more open to that kind of change because of the promises of e-commerce. So that would be the first hurdle, the cultural, the mental and psychological barrier. And then, of course, the rest of the barriers would start coming in. No? So the physical limitations of not having access to the internet, or having an access to mobile phone, or to the technology related to e-commerce, and again, not having any contacts, who to ask, where do you get the information. So these are the next steps, not having the skills. So how do you address again these steps? So again, know where to ask. SB Corp is here, the DTI is here, our BISMED is actually also here. So be more open, ask the Department of Trade and Industry, and also approach your links, no, your business groups, because these are also actually some people who are knowledgeable, have information on how to do it. So those are my three things. So how do you do this? When first is be more open, and then the next two is address the other barriers. So the barriers of capital and the barriers of skills, and then that's hopefully would help them engage in e-commerce. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kimba. And again, there was also a particular portion during your presentation where you said that 100,000 pesos is enough to help is sufficient enough for this for the business to transform into something of more like an e-commerce, which includes probably purchasing a computer and other technical related stuff. Is there a specific way for someone to calculate how much should be borrowed, including of course, the risks and the foresight on what else to spend on?
Yeah. That depends really on the industry and the business, no? So, especially now here given the pandemic, no, you don't want to be lending out your money in such a shotgun method, no? So you just give it all out without a care in the world. So what you really need to do is risk assessment. There should also first be a risk assessment. There should also be a plan how the money will be used. So and how should it be computed? So again, it depends on the industry. It depends on the characteristics of the business. It also depends on the personality of the enterprise owner. So the MSMEs and the micro are not exactly the same as the small and the medium. So again, that's also something that needs to be considered in giving out the loans. So a number of factors are coming in, and it would be interesting if we can have access to some of the surveys that the e-commerce bureau of the Department of Trade and Industry has done. Hi, ASEC Jean. So if to help us calculate really what is the ideal amount to give out for certain types of businesses. It really depends on the type of business and the type of transactions that will be done via e-commerce.
Thank you very much again, Dr. Kimba. And then there is also a request here. He was requesting for a copy of your presentation. I'm not sure if it's available for this Dr. Kimba to give out, but my suggestion is just visit the Facebook Live. The Facebook is Bayanihan Cares, fb.com/Bayanihan Cares. And I believe that this is already happening live. So after all this program is done, you can go back to that and review that portion of the presentation of Dr. Kimba to be able to access and read those links that he presented earlier. And I hope that those links will be also helpful to all of us and all the viewers here. Thank you very much again, Dr. Kimba. Thank you. Digital transformation has grown by leaps and bounds since the turn of the 21st century. But now more than ever, businesses, big or small, have seen the importance of going digital. Our next speaker heads the Digital Philippines and e-commerce program of the Department of Trade and Industry. A highly motivated, dedicated career executive service officer with significant contribution and experience in public sector management, specifically planning, monitoring and evaluation, performance management, public administration, and public policy formulation. As a CESO, she received a Gawad CES 2017 nomination, and she's a 2015 CES VIP Very Innovative Person awardee for introducing innovation and institutionalizing good governance initiatives in the DTI. Appointed in 2018 as Assistant Secretary for Digital Philippines, her current portfolio in the Department of Trade and Industry include managing the e-commerce team, supply chain and logistics management division, and DTI's business name registration system. She is also the Department Legislative Liaison Officer and Chair of the DTI Bids and Awards Committee. Let's all welcome the host of Trade Tayo, DTI's first digital show on the DTI YouTube channel, ASEC Jean Pacheco.
On mute. No, ma'am, we can't hear you.
Hello.
There.
Still no sound.
Yes. No, ma'am, we can hear you now. Yes.
Yeah, you can hear, not?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you po.
Ayan. Sige, let's sige. Thank you po. Good afternoon po. Good afternoon po to everybody, to our boss, Secmon, also to you, Sec Bless, to all the panelists, my co-panelists, good afternoon. But of course, I have to greet to the team, to the birthday celebrants, SB Corporation, led by the very dynamic President and CEO, Ms. Luna Cacanando. Happy birthday po to Team SB Corporation for your 30th birthday. And thank you very much for the opportunity to present very timely, given that the theme is the new normal is digital, business solutions for SMEs. And the topic that I am supposed to speak for today is about the e-commerce Philippines 2022 roadmap. So, sige, let's now proceed. So, yeah. So, I'd like to say that the e-commerce Philippines roadmap is an update from a previous roadmap in 2016 to 2022, which is a Philippine e-commerce roadmap. So this roadmap was really quite recent, having been launched early this year. And as you can see, it is really about until 2022. Alam nyo ho, we believe that e-commerce is really agile, and talagang we decided that really we'll go in a short-term roadmap, and that we hope that we'll be able to facilitate the adoption and accelerate the growth of e-commerce. So if you can see, we have a tagline, no less than the Secretary of Trade helped us in that tagline. It's called Basta E-commerce Madali. No, we would like to really show to everyone that when you say madali, it's both easy, convenient, fast, no? Madali. So pag nag-e-commerce tayo, madali, no? But we also coined e-commerce for market access, digitalization, and logistics integration. So I'd like to give maybe a maganda ho, just to give a certain bit of a context. A 2-minute video lang ho, pang-lay ng context at pang-introduction. So if we can show a 2-minute video of the e-commerce roadmap.
Hello? Okay. Can you hear me? Ara, can you hear? Am I clear? Can you hear me?
Yes, Asik, we can hear you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Asek.
Yan. Thank you very much. Ayan, inayos ko na po. So, okay. I decided po na pakita sa inyo yung 2-minute video to put a context this is what we call the e-commerce roadmap in 2 minutes. Ano po, in 2 minutes. I have to start. Ano po, this is always, I always say that when Secmon designated me to lead the e-commerce portfolio, I was a little bit na insecure po ako kasi I'm not very familiar. Ako po yung digital immigrant. So I don't even buy sa mga online. So napakahirap po ng trabaho ko kasi ngayon kailangan mo ako bumili sa mga platform, sa mga Facebook, sa Lazada, sa Shopee para matutunan ko ang ating tinatawag na e-commerce. But seriously po, I believe that one of the things that we did the beginning was to really understand the e-commerce ecosystem. As you know, DTI, as the government agency responsible for this industry, it's really quite simple that we have to understand who the stakeholders are. So it's very simple. This framework and this illustration that you see, it's really about making sure we know who the customers are. So customer po ito, pwede ho kayong business or pwede rin naman kayong consumer. And then we buy from an online seller. Of course, the thing about e-commerce is the foundation below digital platforms. That is really the thing that makes e-commerce, I guess, unique, no, compared to the brick and mortar, because we have digital platforms that link buyers and sellers. Okay, we do have the payment gateways, the fintechs. You pay from if you want something, and then it's delivered to you, and that's in the form of logistics. Now e-commerce is also made robust by intermediaries, whether it's a training or it's a training institution, or maybe you'd like to do a little bit of data analytics. So you have intermediaries, and of course government, no? So very simple, this is what we needed to determine, at meron ho yan sa loob ng ating e-commerce roadmap, who the players are. It's well defined. Who exactly are the other members, no po, some in the private sector po, that are really ito ho yung mga drivers natin for e-commerce, no? So okay, so next slide. So yun pong ang ating po natin kanina is basta e-commerce madali. So I decided, in the interest of time, that when we coined the basta e-commerce madali, it is not just about making easy and convenient. Meron hong ibig sabihin yung madali para ho kami madali naming matatandaan kung ano talaga yung priorities natin. So yung madali stands for market access, di ba? Digitalization at logistics integration. Madali. Unahin ho natin yung market access, no po? So alam niyo ho, we have 22 action items or action agenda in the e-commerce roadmap. So yung nakikita ho natin dito is agenda 16 and 17. No, it's about making sure that we encourage cross-border e-commerce at saka po yung tinatawag natin nga B2B and B2C. When we say market access, you can see in this particular slide the players. Alam niyo po, as I mentioned, there are platforms, diba? And then the platforms marami pa lang klase yung mga platforms. So merong mga marketplaces. Yan pong marketplaces, ayan po, alam ho natin yan yung mga the likes of Lazada, Shopee. If you look at their statistics, you have about ang latest na nabasa ko po from statistics, about 50 million monthly visitors. Imagine that. If you were a seller, you have access to 50 million visits in the platform. So it would be very easy kung kayo po ay mag-onboard because of all of these many sellers and many buyers that are in the platform. So marami ho, no? And when we say access, so there's merong service, may payment platforms, may logistic platforms, may delivery platforms. So all of this provide the access between the sellers at saka po and the buyers. So ang tanong po, no, what are we doing, no? What is the plan about in the e-commerce roadmap? When we say market access, we are focusing not only on domestic, you have a choice. If you are a seller, you want to focus your sales or your business for the domestic, okay po yon. Or you can do cross-border e-commerce. So yan po naman, if you want to go and sell abroad, pwede po yan. Access to market also may be B2B. You sell from a business to another business or a business to a consumer. All of that is part of the e-commerce roadmap, no? Yan po ay talagang ating sinusubaybayan at the DTI is very much into it because sabi ko nga po, no, it's not only e-commerce bureau, it's really the entire Department of Trade. So for example po, if you can see in the screen, I hope you can see them. Alam niyo po, we spent a great deal of effort, especially during the pandemic, to onboard SMEs into the platforms. You remember during the time of the pandemic, I remember very clearly that was the time that we were finalizing the e-commerce roadmap. And then the Secretary of Trade said, because of the quarantine, and that we should use this opportunity to help our SMEs pivot, no, from offline to online. So we started really doing efforts of onboarding. So we assisted our SMEs and introduced them to the platforms so that the platforms can facilitate the entry, no? So marami po kayong makikita na ginawa na ng ating Department of Trade through our bureaus, no? Nandiyan po yung Bureau of Domestic Trade natin. They really nakita ho natin, we assisted SMEs in Shopinas, in Shopee, in Lazada, pati po si Union Bank, meron din po sa Carousel, all our regional operations, the regional operations group. That was really one of the things and the strategies to onboard to the platforms. And then meron ho, DTI also had to embark itself also on a digital marketing. So even our national trade fair, which you are probably familiar with, you would always go to maybe SM to in the past to go, but because of the pandemic, we put it online, no? Through Shopee, for example, we had a national food fair in Shopee. So not only is it on domestic, we also did when you say onboarding po, no? So we ngayon po magpa-plug na po ako, meron hong ongoing na grand sale ng ASEAN online sale from August 8 to 10 po ito. So the ASEAN is really encouraging in intra-ASEAN, and also this is really something of a project that we can really increase cross-border trade among the region, no po? So these are the things that we are providing access to in terms of market. Meron pa po cross-border po ulit, ito naman pong Amazon. Yan hong Amazon came to us and then they said, we would like to get some SMEs to try selling to the United States using our platform, Amazon platform. So that's what we do in the DTI, in the e-commerce office. We try to really promote this exchange of goods. It could be, alam niyo, pwede ho kasi kayong mag-marketplace, mag-platform. And we always tell our SMEs, omni-channel po tayo, no? Pwede po kayong magkaroon ng sarili niyong website o pwede kayong mag-platform. Nakita po ninyo tong Google My Business, no? Sometimes we say, we need the web developer to come up with that. Minsan, hindi na ho kailangan. Punta ho kayo sa Google. If there are SMEs out here that are keen, I suggest that you try Google My Business, because as you know, Google is a very good platform. You are searchable, discoverable. Your store can be located. So the Department of Trade and the e-commerce office and the regional operations group, kami po ay nag-partner with Google in order that you can have your store and you can use the platform by Google in order for your business, no, to be found, and that can help, no, as you try to grow, or even if you want to start your business, you can certainly start off with an account in Google My Business. So all of this po is really what we call market access. So whether you want to sell domestically or you want to sell abroad, then this is something that the e-commerce roadmap is focusing on, because this is what we want for your business. We want your business to grow. So that's the ma. Ma. Let's now go to the da. So MADA. So it's now digitalization. The e-commerce roadmap, alam nyo, kita ho natin, no? Digitalization. Focus on the ta. Because sabi ho nila, digitization daw is really from analog to digital. But digitalization daw po is really when you really transform your business processes. Now, if you are a business, so you change your business processes and add technology into your processes. So digitalization in the e-commerce roadmap refers not only to the digital transformation of businesses, particularly micro, small, medium enterprises. It is also about promoting government technology, or what we call e-government or GovTech. Ano po? We also need to upskill and reskill our people. So digitalizing, dapat to meron tayong digital skills, e-commerce skills of our human capital. I know many of I've seen the participants here, many are in the tourism sector. So there could be, and we know that the tourism sector has been badly hit by the pandemic. So many of we have received increase about, maybe it's time to reskill, because as you know, because of e-commerce, there is really quite a bit of a potential for those that are for e-commerce enterprises. So let me just pause about and tell you about digital. Unahin ko po yung number 3, yung digital reskilling and upskilling of people. We interviewed po the e-commerce sector. Yun kaninang sinabi ko in the beginning of my slide. Yun hong stakeholders natin. So we talked to the platforms, we talked to the fintechs, we talked to the banks, we talked to the logistics providers, the telcos. We met with them and then we asked them, are you hiring? And what type of people do you need? Alam nyo ho, it was really very, I would suppose, revealing to know that most of them looked at particular digital skills. No, marami po sa kanila, whether you are in Grab or you are in Lazada or you are fintech, a bank. Alam nyo, ang kailangan daw ho nila yung marunong daw po sa Java, sa Python. Yung iba po, yung social media marketing skills. So, nakita po ng DTI e-commerce that really there is really a need for that particular skill. So this is the reason why the DTI came up with a program which is called PET project, which is short for Pivot, Embrace Technology, which it really intends to reskill and upskill our fellow countrymen para ho ma-absorb po sila ng e-commerce sector natin, dahil we can see that there is really quite a need for this e-commerce skills for these particular companies. So that's what we're saying, that the effort of the e-commerce roadmap is to make sure that we build a cadre of digitally skilled workers that will be part of the e-commerce sector to make the e-commerce sector sustainable. So yun po. So that's what we call the PET project. Punta naman ho tayo dun sa GovTech. No po? So GovTech is about e-government. No, we are transforming, as I said, government. There's digital transformation in government. Earlier on, you heard our Secretary of Trade who mentioned starting off with the DTI, where we made business name registration easy. Yun pong 8 minutes lang. Basta kayo po ay merong Paymaya, meron kayong GCash, meron kayong Land Bank, pwede po kami credit card, pwede po kayong dire-diretso lang po in 8 minutes, apply, pay, download, you get your certificate for business name. Now, I am pleased to tell you that ito po in response to the President, remember in the last SONA po talagang the President really reiterated the ease of doing business. So meron po tayo dyan na ang ARTA po and the ICT has worked on what we call a central business portal. So if you are a corporation, a one-person corporation, You go through the central business portal, you can basically register, get your BIR registration and the social agencies. Go through the portal and this will be very fast. This is mas mabilis po ito kaysa yung pupunta ho tayo sa mga bawat opisina, iisa-isahin natin when you can really just go to the central business portal. Abangan po ninyo to because si Secretary of Trade, Secmon, said for DTI to make sure that we are also part and integrated in the central business portal. So para po yung mga sole proprietor, dito rin po you can apply and then dire-diretso ho natin to end-to-end registration because this is really what GovTech or automation of government is all about. And then finally, digital transformation of businesses. Again, the Secretary of Trade mentioned about the study that we conducted. And Dr. Kimba, we will surely send you a copy of that study. Where's my screen? I think I lost my screen. Yes, thank you so much. So the digital transformation of businesses, we had yung pong survey ng MSMEs, and we realized when ito similar to the study of ASEAN, yung ASEAN meron basic, intermediate at advanced. Ang ibig sabihin po ng basic, meron kayong gumagamit po kayo ng mobile sa inyong negosyo. Meron tayong email, yan po ang basic dun sa ASEAN study. And when you are labeled intermediate, if you sell online, so you are labeled intermediate, and then you are advanced if you use data analytics in your business. So we did the same study in the Philippines, adapting it in the Philippine context, and we realized something, that we have a level below basic and we're calling it a level 0. Meaning to say, there are basically 23% po. 23% of those that were the respondents, they have mobile phones, but they don't use it for business. No? So they only use it for personal. So that's what we are trying to do now with the DTI. We need to identify what level are you or what category are you, so that the appropriate intervention can be given to that particular SME in terms of its digital transformation journey. Alam nyo, level 151% po are basic. Meaning to say, they have an email. Yun ho yung ginagawa. But makita po ninyo, only 20% sell online. So we can see that that's what we're doing now. The DTI together with the regional operations group, we are now preparing like a module based on the level, so that it is not a one size fits all. Depends on the category of SME. Whatever you need, the SMEs need is what the DTI can provide. Of course, the regional operations group. So yan po yung isa natin. And makita ho ninyo, no, ito hong sinasabi natin na we started with our digital transformation. Even before nga po, even we are now into really it's a deep dive. I'd like to report that since the pandemic in April last year when we started, we came up with what we call a reboot program. No? So dito ho nag-start yung ating parang training and digital transformation journey of many of our micro, small, medium enterprises. And at this point in time, I really would like to thank all of the private sector who are here and all those who have been our partners in DTI. You can see them on screen. Talagang tumulong po sila sa atin. Pati nga po ito, meron nga hong isang linggong e-commerce na ginawa ho namin. Meron ho talaga tayong Google Mondays, PLDT Tuesdays, Facebook Wednesdays, Alibaba Thursday, maging ho Shopee, may Shopee Thursday pala yun, tsaka GCash Fridays, and hello din po pala sa ating PLDT na kasunod ko po, no? And to the Vince, hello, special shout out. So ito po, no, talagang the private sector really helped DTI so that we can actually service our micro, small, medium enterprises. So bilisan ko na. So okay. So the last one is logistics, no? Logistics integration. Okay. So alam nyo, bibilisan ko because wala pong e-commerce if we don't have an efficient logistics performance. So I remember again ang ating instruction from the secretary, we have to make sure that we reduce logistics cost. So nakikita ho ninyo sa ating framework, no? We really defined ano po ba yung logistics. So you can see the one in the box, the one encircled on the red is really last mile. Yan po yung focus natin, especially relative to e-commerce. These are the last mile providers that you go directly to the consumer. But let me just very briefly tell you that logistics is very much a priority of the Department of Trade. And in fact, we also have several studies that we are monitoring. But also, we had a very recent one, which is what we call a logistics efficiency index, where we really where we found out some logistics behavior. No po? So we realized the need for our manufacturers to have a logistics plan. According to our SMEs, the most important for them is reliability. And ito po, yung pong meron pong lead time, no, starting from the time it was an order was made 34. So nagkaroon na po tayo ng mga certain information that that will be used as baseline so that we know that we are in effect need to address the gaps and the challenges to make sure that we improve logistics performance and reduce cost. Next. So that's about So basically yun po yung madali, basta e-commerce madali. Basically this is a summary of the roadmap. You've seen it in the 2-minute video. The framework is about SSS: structure, security, speed is equals to sales. So at the end of the day, what we want is for the micro, small, medium enterprises is to be able to increase your sales, whether it is in domestic or cross border. What we want is you really have that access to market. We realize that e-commerce need to be has a strong foundation. So whether you are the public sector, the private sector, or of course the people, we all need to have all of these interventions in place. Security is very important because sabi ho ulit, I will again remember very well the instructions of SecMon. He said that the e-commerce should start really to focus on building trust. Yan po, building trust between e-commerce, between sellers and buyers. So this means about, whether it is about cybersecurity, data privacy, intellectual property, consumer protection. Yan po, dapat government should make sure that people will not be afraid. No, people will not be afraid to go into e-commerce. People will not be afraid to buy through e-commerce, buy online. And then finally, the characteristic of e-commerce is speed. No, not only the speed of the internet. Of course, people will equate speed to the internet, but more than that, there is a matter of speed na kapag nag-order kayo, mabilis darating sa inyo. Pag meron kayong reklamo, mabilis na sasagot yung inyong reklamo. Ang payments ay mabilis. So those are the elements of speed. And in the roadmap, you can see very clearly all of the interventions that are needed in order to address structure, security, at saka speed. Alam niyo po, we have to say that the e-commerce roadmap is not just a DTI roadmap. The e-commerce roadmap is a government roadmap, and we're very, very pleased that this is where we see the Bangko Sentral and the digital payments roadmap, the national broadband plan of the DICT, the PSA national ID system. So lahat po ng mga roadmaps po ng government that are related to e-commerce, sinusubaybayan po yan under the e-commerce roadmap. Okay? So, ma-business lang po. Syempre, at the end of the day, we have some goals. Ang goals po natin by 2022, sana umabot po tayo ng 1 million e-commerce enterprises. Ang estimate po natin ng 2020 is 500,000. So we hope that this year we have 750, and hopefully by end of the plan, the target is 1 million. Next. Ganun din po, remember that simple lang po yung e-commerce roadmap. We want to have more sellers and we want to have more buyers buying more frequently. So para ho tumaas yung ating gross merchandise value. We use the Google Temasek study as basis for our this particular measure. Next. So I would like to end by saying this, sabi ho ng sulat ng SB Corporation, is to talk about the e-commerce roadmap and to provide insight and inspiration. So, and I'm glad that I came after Dr. Kimba, because it basically allowed us to tell what is in the what government is doing. So ito lang po ang final word na masasabi ko, na usually I start with this but now I will end with this. The Philippines po is built for e-commerce, no? Bakit ho? Kasi we have a large, young, and growing population that use the internet the heaviest. So if you notice, mas marami pong mobile phones tayo than the population. And then, if you look at the number 1 ho tayo sa ranking, we are number 1 pag mineasure po yung number of internet use, 10 hours po sa Pilipinas, at ang social media naman po ay 4 hours. So talagang syempre sino naman po yung mga bumibili, talaga pong yung syempre nag-i-internet. So we really have ano po din, talagang naniniwala tayo na talagang alam na alam ho natin to. Tapos most of, especially po, di ba sabi po yung mga Pilipino, pag masaya, bumibili. Pag malungkot, bumibili. Pag galit, bumibili. Lahat mo nararamdaman, bumibili. So yan po, kaya ho talagang magiging robust ang ating e-commerce. And this shows with the adoption of e-commerce, as you can see in the statistics. In 2019, it was about 70% of those that use internet buy. But in 2021, according to the digital report, 80% na po, no, ang talaga pong bumili ho, no, that they bought something, no. These are the internet users, these are the young. So we can also see some great strides in terms of the speed of internet, and because of that, we really are confident that with the accelerated adoption of e-commerce during the pandemic, that this sector will grow. So this is my last slide. With that, I thank you very much, and I hope, alam niyo po, ako nga po yung, meron po kaming digital show ng DTI. So pagka pinest po ninyo yung QR code, ang lalabas po dyan yung show kung saan ang SB Corporation natin na si CEO President Luna ay naging guest po namin sa ating digital show. Pati po si Azel, baka po you want to find out and watch the show. So maraming salamat SB Corporation, and happy anniversary to you. And thank you everyone for this opportunity. Basta e-commerce, madali.
Basta e-commerce madali. Thank you very much, ASEC Jean, para sa inyong binigay po na napakagandang presentation. Of course, digitalization will not be possible without proper tools. Our next speaker will be sharing with us the business solution available for businesses as they adapt to the ever-changing business environment because of the pandemic. He is currently the first vice president of PLDT Enterprise, the corporate business group of PLDT Incorporated that serves the top-tier enterprise customers. Concurrently, he serves as the head of the enterprise businesses of PLDT Global, present in the United States, United Kingdom, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Australia. Let us all welcome Mr. Victor Tria.
Hello. Hope you can see my video. Hello, maraming salamat, Carlo. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Let me just Maraming salamat again, Carlo. And really, the Philippines is built for e-commerce. Online transaction, according to local banks, from what I've gathered lately, quadrupled the past 12 months. So really great presentation. A lot of insights from ASEC Jean and Dr. Kimba. Salamat. To all our esteemed guests, DTS Secretary Ramon Lopez, Undersecretary Blesila Lantayona, Undersecretary Roberto Alabado, Assistant Secretary Jean Pacheco, SB Corp President Luna Cacanando, and Executive Vice President Santiago Lim, our partners and friends from the micro and SME sector. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Thank you once again for inviting us here. On behalf of PLDT Enterprise, I'd like to congratulate SB Corp, Small Business Corporation, on its 30th anniversary. Congratulations po, and for organizing this event to help guide so many micro and small and medium enterprises, and more importantly, tie them over in these difficult times. Mabuhay po kayo. There's really no denying that the last 18 months were really trying times for all of us. This pandemic has posed unprecedented challenges across many, if not all, industries. But despite these difficult times also highlighted our resiliency, how the micro and SME sector has been turning these challenges into opportunities by pivoting to what is now known to be the new normal. I have actually prepared just a short presentation and hope to add insights to what we have heard earlier to this forum this afternoon. We all know and we have seen how real the pain is. PLDT Enterprise has been conducting regular kumustahan sessions with customers, especially with small and medium enterprises, trying our best to reach out to them to understand how they are doing and how can we be of more assistance. The last one we had was last quarter with a few micro and small and medium enterprises. And let me share some few excerpts from the last session we had. And these are really direct feedback from the ground on recent local business climate and how they're coping. One quote from a micro-based dine-in restaurant owner. Sabi niya, when we reopened again, no dine-in. So that was the challenge. It is all takeout. And now we are very reliant on Grab or Food Panda delivery, which before was not super big naman. Ngayon, like 80% of our sales are coming from delivery. And we need our internet. Kasi kung walang internet, we won't get the orders from their call centers. This is very real. We have seen the increasing number of riders all over, delivering the food and the things we order direct into our homes, everywhere today. Another one from a medium-sized school operator from the province. What he said, our projection at this time is it may still 2 years before we will be able to work things out with our students. So we cannot have yet face-to-face. This is a In this case, we are thinking that we will continue offering distance learning to our students. This is from a school operator. He is saying distance learning to be the norm for the majority until probably the school year 2022 to 2023. We don't know yet, but this is what they're feeding from the ground. Another one from a small IT company, just so recently, he said, we started to set up our learning management system. I went to 30 schools to promote and got 4 schools to subscribe and put up the servers in their schools immediately. This one is very encouraging. More and more are embracing technology, even with a bit of uncertainty or anxiety by starting with the basics, just to keep their businesses afloat. Very, very encouraging. They're so brave to do this, we all acknowledge that micro businesses and small and medium enterprises remain the lifeblood and the real backbone of our economy. I saw that in the video earlier. For close to 1 million businesses operating in the country, we know that 99% are micro SMEs, and more significantly, this sector generates more than half of the country's employment. However, this sector is the most affected by all the pandemic containment measures, where social distancing is more difficult to implement and more vulnerable to business shock. They will continue to get hit in this crisis and more likely to experience drops in sales as we approach the remainder of the year with more lockdown measures from news of increasing Delta variant, which could eventually lead to further decline in consumer activity and decline in the amount of goods and services produced. I got this report, data from 2021 Global State of Small Medium Businesses report. It shows that more than half of operational micro and small and medium enterprises surveyed throughout the world disclosed a year-on-year monthly decline in revenue of more than 50%. Well, it's not surprising. We know this, no? But for me, it is not all bad news, if I may, as this pandemic has led this segment, to push even harder to embrace digital readiness. I've seen it from the report of ASEC Jim, very encouraging. And those who have been able to adapt technology on short notice are likely to engage and sustain online activities and keep their revenues during the crisis. And also put them in an advantageous position when the economy recovers post-pandemic. We've seen a lot of micro SMEs being merchants of Shopee and Lazada. They're selling their goods in Shopee and Lazada, entering into online marketplaces. And they're getting business. They are sustaining their revenues. They're brave. But the question is, how many micro and SMEs in our country have been quickly embracing relevant technologies? How many? Now, more than ever, the pandemic has underscored the key role of the national government and LGUs in leading reforms, including financial organizations such as SB Corp and technology companies like us in extending that much needed support to help keep this sector resilient or above water and prepare our economy for a rebound post-pandemic. Now, what are the possible sources of micro and SMEs resilience? Not just to tie them over, but allow them to at least decently post positive numbers and prepare them for real gain post-pandemic. Allow me to share insights I got from a study conducted and released by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development on SME Outlook 2021. This is just so recent, which places a special focus on the impact of the global pandemic on SMEs, how governments responded through crisis and recovery policies, and the SMEs' sources of resilience in general. We need to understand the SME sources of resilience. I'd like to highlight here 3 sources of resilience of micro and small and medium enterprises that are common across all countries. Number 1, their digital readiness. Number 2, their cash reserves and or access to private or government finance programs. And C, the availability of innovation or technology skills in the labor market. Really very interesting. This is what we've been discussing earlier. All these 3 have to play together for a resilient micro and SME sector. If I may, on digital readiness. The crisis gave a big push to SME digitalization, and those that were already operating online or have been able to adapt IT solutions and processes have been more likely to sustain activities and keep their revenues amidst the uncertainties. However, the study mentioned that digital uptake across countries is consistently lower in smaller businesses, which we hope to contribute in helping improve the situation. I heard it also earlier, meron tayong micro SME, they have their mobile phone, but they're not using that for online activities for their business. The study highlighted 4 relevant digital technologies. Very simple na. It's not rocket science. These are the basic digital technologies they need to be able to cope in this pandemic and even thrive and prosper post-pandemic. A, they need a high-speed broadband for just in-time communication and for use of other digital technologies. High-speed broadband, average 50 to 100 Mbps. B, social media for marketing. They need to be very active in social media. C, e-commerce to receive orders. That's why a lot of micro SMEs are joining as merchants of the likes of Shopee and Lazada, marketing their products and services in this online marketplaces. D, cloud computing as a platform to access digital solutions at low cost. I probably would add one more, and that is cybersecurity, as more and more micro SMEs enter into technology. But that would be later on as they establish their digital presence in the online market. Now, we in PLDT continue to be cognizant of the needs of the micro SMEs. Now, we have introduced a business-grade fiber that will help them in their pivot. We call it Beyond Fiber, which probably you've heard about it, with the right speed, which is just right for business as the foundation of their digital transformation. It goes even with a special program. They can try it for just 1 peso a day or 90 pesos for 3 months, and no cancellation fee within the first 3 months if they wish to discontinue. We fully understand the challenges. These are a way of helping the sector, right? So, which is very important to us. B, cash reserves, access to finance programs, and government's liquidity support. Liquidity shortages have been a major issue for SMEs during the COVID-19 crisis. Most of them having only a couple of months of income in cash reserves to pay charges and salaries as revenues collapse. I've seen this in the video earlier. Study shows that SMEs that have been able to access government support during the year have been more likely to maintain operations and not close business. That's why very important is the role of SB Corp. Support in the form of availability of funds from financial institutions, probably subsidy or deferral of loan payments, and even non-financial support, such as information, technical assistance, or advisory services are all very much needed. And I'd like to thank SB Corp for digitalizing its internal application processes, making it even much easier now to apply for loan. Maraming salamat po sa inyo. And the last item raised in this study is technical or innovation skills. The availability of affordable technical or innovation skills in the labor market is critical for the resilience of SMEs as they intend to adapt to new business conditions. They will even be as critical for the recovery going forward. I like the vision of the presentation earlier that they wish 1 million companies will be involved in e-commerce. It's a good vision, very encouraging. Some of the skills highlighted in the study are they need ICT skills or knowledge of IT hardware and software, including applications, adaptability and flexibility skills. We need to learn how to pivot, and see practical intelligence for innovation, among others. Asik Jean mentioned a lot of these activities earlier. Micro and SMEs need all the regular ICT training and upskilling they could possibly receive from us, both from the government and the private sector, to immediately address the digital skill gaps. In summary, as I land my short presentation, we have to continue to handhold the SMEs to keep this critical sector afloat. Number one, keep them digital ready. 2, give them access to financial programs. And 3, help them upskill through ICT trainings. All of these 3 must go hand in hand to keep this sector resilient. In spite of the significant challenges we face, it is so encouraging to hear that an increasing number of SMEs has been preparing to rebound and has adjusted their business models, trying their best to become digital savvy, not only for today, but for the future, to adapt to a post-pandemic economic environment. PLDT Enterprise is one with you all in supporting and guiding this sector in the spirit of change. Maraming salamat po. Mabuhay po kayo.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Mr. Victor Tria. Now, to share with us how SB Corp transformed to become digital, let's welcome the head of the Information Technology Group of SB Corp, Ms. Evelyn Pelias.
Plans for SB Corporation's platformification program have been in the drawing board as early as 2019. The concept was introduced as the corporation's strategy for integrating different systems into an online platform where multiple participants, including the MSMEs, will be able to connect and interact. The corporation believes that adopting new technologies will greatly contribute in achieving its goals to increase customer satisfaction, widen market reach, provide easy access to financing services to clients across the country, implement a data-driven policy and decision-making process, and optimize operational efficiency. Prior to the pandemic, interaction with our MSME clients were largely paper-based. Clients availing of SB Corporation's financing services had to physically submit manual application forms along with hard copies of documentary requirements. Account officers will then encode the information into automated Oracle modules supporting the loan evaluation process. These systems were operating in a client-server environment using our virtual private network. When the pandemic struck in early 2020, we were faced with the big challenge of not being able to deliver our financing services using the systems that we had in place. This challenge paved the way for us to go full blast in our digitalization, front-loading our platformification program, starting with developing and implementing online systems that ensured an efficient customer journey for our borrowers. With the launch of the CARES program in June 2020, came the online platform for our customers. The customer begins the journey through the Borrower Registration System, or the BRS. In this online system, a potential borrower can register by providing basic information. Registration is secured through a two-factor authentication process. Once registered, the potential borrower will provide the necessary information about the business and the loan requirements, formally starting the loan application process. Next is the uploading of required documents. Previously, borrowers were required to submit physical documents and forms. With the BRS, borrowers no longer have to visit our offices to complete this step. Once this step is completed, the ball is now passed to our internal teams for loan assessment. The Business Information Assessment, or the BIA team, checks the accuracy and completeness of the documents submitted. The Credit Standing Assessment, or CSA team, checks for any adverse credit history. Once the checks for steps 4 and 5 are successfully completed, the Financial Performance Assessment team conducts virtual face-to-face interviews with a potential borrower and makes an assessment on financial performance. For all these steps, online loan processing systems were developed to support the teams in the performance of their functions. These systems can be accessed remotely, enabling our assessment teams to work from home. Once the loan application is approved, our loan release team then generates and processes loan release documents. For the loan release, our systems have replaced traditional wet signatures with electronic signatures. This is secured through two-factor authentication procedures, including the use of one-time PIN codes. The customer's journey ends with the release of loan proceeds. We have shifted from check-based mode to electronic fund transfers to the borrower's bank account, or EMI account. Digitalization has greatly simplified the customer journey under the CARES program. To add to this, we were also able to adapt to the COVID landscape for our internal teams. Our vision for adopting new technologies has also enabled us to embrace digitalization in other areas within the corporation. In marketing our financing products, we have actively utilized online channels to ensure a wider market reach in a shorter period of time. In monitoring and analyzing program performance, we developed and implemented analytical tools to boost efficiency and enable data-driven decision and policy-making processes. All the running application systems for both the client server and online platforms comprise FinTech 1.0 of SB Corporation's platformification program. We will continue to work in improving credit delivery services by undertaking more technology-based projects with the goal of making the customer's journey with us even better. Our projects include an online account monitoring system to support virtual project visits and an improved application of payment system to facilitate the collection process and to provide online access to statements of account of our borrowers. We are likewise exploring partnerships with online payment channels, and more importantly, we are aggressively strengthening our IT infrastructure. The months ahead will see SB Corporation continuing to explore and adopt new ways and technologies towards FinTech 2.0, the next step in our platformification program. This will continue to support MSMEs as they grow in an environment that is technology-based, where the new normal is digital.
Thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. Our next speaker is probably one of the most popular optometrists in the country. She comes from generations of optometrists, and her family-owned chain of optical clinics, popularly known as Sarabia Optical, is already synonymous to eye care. She is the CEO of Vivian Sarabia Optical and Oculus Providers, which was founded in 1906. A former chairperson and board member of Professional Regulation Commission Optometry Board. 2013 Filipina Entrepreneur Awardee of the Year, Go Negosyo, a mentor of Go Negosyo, and was featured in Joey Concepcion's 55 Inspiring Stories of Women Entrepreneur and Special Edition Inspiring Stories Women Entrepreneurs. You know what? Her big chain of companies suffered a great loss when the pandemic hit. A lot of her branches had to close. Many can relate to this kind of hardship. And here to share with us her testimony of how the digitalization of small business corporation enabled her to access much needed financing for her company to restart during the pandemic. Let us all welcome Dr. Vivian Sarabia.
Congratulations and mabuhay to SB Corp. Thank you, Carlo. Good afternoon, everyone. As I speak with you, there are two realizations that come to my mind right away. First is that we are all here in this virtual forum, alive, and we thank God for having spared us from COVID's wrath. The second realization is that we are still all here, seriously thinking of how we can improve, adjust, innovate, and rationalize our businesses and thrive despite the pandemic. Which also means that our businesses are still very much around, even as we continuously seek ways to ensure its survival, our survival. We all have stories to share. Let me share mine. We know that all businesses have different models, different platforms, and most definitely different financial limitations. On this note, allow me to acknowledge DTI's SB Corporation for being dynamic enough to anticipate and provide for the needs of SMEs with the essential boost in business solutions that will eventually equip them in adapting to the new normal and the ever-changing times of the digital era. Several years back, I owned and operated several optical shops bearing my name inside the major malls in the metropolis. We had a successful run and business was bliss and the future bright. After some time, I realized that the bulk of my earnings went to servicing my overhead, particularly floor space rental. Salaries and wages was never a problem because my employees earned their keep and were essential to my operations. Traffic on the road was getting worse, keeping people away from the malls. I was assessing my situation and thought to myself that while I was making very good money, I was for the most part of it working for the malls, considering the hefty amounts paid to them come rental collection time. In 2017, way before the pandemic, I decided to rationalize and close all my mall retail stores, focusing instead on corporate sales. I was an optical provider to BPOs and other major corporations. I was just operating in a single retail store bearing the name Vivian Sarabia in one of the posh malls in the city for visibility and handle all after-sales service. In 2017, I was commissioned to partner and start a vision care program by a New York-based foundation examining and providing prescription glasses for 15,000 yearly to marginalized students in public schools, fulfilling as well my company's CSR. Then, 2 years ago, the COVID-19 pandemic came suddenly like a thief in the night. No one was prepared for it, not even the government. It was a touch and go situation as we groped and made do with whatever it was available, doable and feasible. It was a live or die situation, and it meant both ways. People actually died from COVID. Some of our dear relatives and friends were claimed by the dreaded virus. There have been many entrepreneurs and establishments, both big and small, that closed shop to cut their losses owing to the uncertainty of the business climate. When community quarantine was imposed, it felt like someone pushed a pause button and the world was standstill. All of a sudden, we have to close and remain closed indefinitely. All of a sudden, I have bills, rent, and salaries to pay, checks to fund with no income in sight. The very first thought on my mind was, how do I survive this for my people? I did not panic and remain composed. I explored ways to keep all my employees on the payroll, even the store was closed. It was most important that I assured my people, many of whom have been with me for a long while, that I see to it that they have food on their tables. And what I have, they will have too. On the first month of the lockdown, I allowed all my employees to monetize their leave credits. The next month, I released their 13-month pay while helping them apply for every benefit that the government made available for them. I made sure that every month they got something. But as the lockdown extended, I started running out of options and means to keep my employees. I was drawing from my personal savings already. I was made sure to pay them $2,000 every week so they have money to at least buy food for themselves and their families. When I hired them, employees have become my family and their families my extended family. I keep telling them, malalampasan natin ito at magkakasama. Mahalaga na magbigayan lang tayo. Lakas lang ng loob. We went to our clients, friends, and their families for consultations to their homes and condominiums, donned in our personal protective equipment, bringing with us optical instruments and frames. We were like a one-stop shop vision care service in their homes. It wasn't enough, but at that time, it was enough to pay my workers a minimum salary. They still had a livelihood, and I also had mine. While their salaries were cut to a minimum, they did not complain. According to them, they were better off compared to many others. I believe that. In their own little way, they were also very mindful of my financial situation. In June 2020, my fear became imminent. There was nothing left. It was also during this time that the mall started coaxing me back, asking that I reopen my mall outlet. They were still charging me rent, even when the malls were closed, and with government asking them to be more liberal with their tenants as business was in a downturn. I had nothing left. How was I going to pay rent? It was time to make tough decisions. I took a leap of faith. With all the courage that was left in me, I decided to close the mall outlet and started building an outlet from the ground up. I didn't have much. I couldn't afford a contractor to build the new store, so I did it myself. Then I learned about the Bayanihan Cares program of DTI Small Business Corporation from Secretary Mon Lopez, and I immediately grabbed the opportunity. I had never borrowed. I never had reason to loan for my business. Not until now. Most of the people I know who have businesses choose to take the easy way out and folded tents. I could have done that myself, stopping the bleeding and turn my back to it all. My conscience will not allow it. I cannot take it. I cannot live thinking that there are people I will be letting down. With Bayanihan Cares loan, I was able to take care of all my financial responsibilities, making it possible for me to restart with a clean slate. If there is one advice I can give business owners during these trying times, it is to accept our realities. There is nothing wrong with admitting that we need help. Sometimes the easy way out is not the best way. We need to find a way to remain open for our people. They are our responsibility. Despite the pandemic, I opened my new store in a new strategic site last August. My bank asked me why I needed to borrow from SB Corp and not from them. I, in turn, asked them why they can't lend like SB Corp if they really want to help. With a 1-year grace period, SB Corp has allowed me to breathe. That is what I'm most grateful for. Thank you, SB Corp, for allowing me to breathe. One day, you will tell your story and how you were able to overcome what you're going through. It will become someone else's survival's guide. You are going to be their hope, so don't lose yours. Let me share with you my personal learnings and insights with what I have gone through for the duration of this pandemic, while drawing insights and inspiration from Su Chu's Art of War. I have come up with my very own survival guide. 1. Remove ego from your equation. Ask for help when you need it. SB Corp is here. Stop. Number 2. Stop being the manager of the universe. Take stock of yourself. Have a realistic and honest assessment of what you are up against. Know your greatest strength and weakness. Pray for guidance and enlightenment. Listen. Number 3. Yours is not the only way. Even your driver has wisdom to contribute. Listen. 4. Create your loyal army. Look for people who are willing to be part of your army. Take care of them and harness unwavering commitment. Keep communicating with them. We are all in this war together. 6. Awareness. Focus. Adapt. Adjust. Reassess. And innovate as situations change. Don't panic with new situations. And never make major decisions when you are emotional. Number 7. Don't let stress disempower you. Be still and know that your realities speak to you in silence. 8. Keep moving forward for a realistic survival. You have 2 choices. Either evolve or repeat. To try or not. There is no other way but try. Yes. And number 9. When payables come, negotiation skills are very essential. And lastly, number 10. No need to rediscover the wheel. Study other business models, pick up ideas, and get a mentor you believe in. This situation is bad. It's not okay, but circumstances undesirable to say at the least. However, it is not a rut that we cannot get out of it if we get our act together. If we and government act together, we all deserve that break. Our lives may be feeling a little hard lately, yet in spite of our state of affairs not being okay, we always say, it's okay. Not an accepting or a resigned manner, but one that is a lot of defiance. We cannot and we should not allow our spirits to be dampened by our circumstances. Instead, it's okay. These words have special ring to it. It's reassuring, it's like soothing, so calming. Finally, when stress is there in your life, I normally just close my eyes. I take a long breath and inhale all the courage, the good that I have done, and all the blessings that I have received. I will hold my breath and exhale all the negativity and my fears in one quick motion. Have a good evening, and thank you for having me.
In terms of clients that we cater, minsan may tour kami na 34 buses in one day. Aside sa travel, no, marami kaming tickets na nabibenta because we are also an authorized to-go ticketing office. Aside from airline, may to-go travel ka. Ganun siya karaming kinikater kaya masaya before the pandemic.
Sa aking negosyo, ang pinaka mabenta ay during the months of March, April, May. Kasi po, yan ay bakasyon, graduation, reunion, kasalan, at marami ring mga tourist na galing sa ibang bansa dahil po summer, may botanding season.
Dahil nagalaw namin yung savings namin, of course, nagde-deplete yung aming savings. So dumating si Bayanihan Cares. Kumbaga na-replenish siya and then we have paid our liabilities, our obligations, especially to continue yung salary ng staff. And at the same time, we were able to create another program for our client then. We are now marketing a virtual internship program for our school clients. So nagamit namin yon kasi syempre for resources, okay, in partnership with other hotels, establishments, yun. We're able to use that fund. Until now, we're using it.
Nagawa kami ngayon ng food delivery service kasi nauso bagga yung food delivery. Nagluluto kami, nagpapa-order online. Yun ang ginamit namin paraan para yung wala kang agam-agam na hindi ka na makakapasok bukas dahil sarado ang pinapasukan mo. So, may cook, may tumutulong sa pagluluto, tumutulong sa pag-arrange kasi delivery. Doon ko ginamit ang nilon ko sa Bayanihan Cares for tourism. Every day is a new beginning. Every day is a blessing. Every day, whenever you get up, you can do something to improve your difficult situation yesterday.
We would like to thank the people behind the SB Corp Bayanihan Cares program. The government appreciates the contribution of the tourism industry in our Philippine economy. So, kasi naisip nilang tulungan kami, no? And it's a very big help for all of us.
One of the most affected industries in the pandemic is undoubtedly the tourism industry. Prior to the pandemic, Philippine tourism steadily registered growth, reaching over 8 million international arrivals shortly before the lockdowns. So now the hard question that needs to be answered is, how do we revitalize our tourism industry in the new normal? Our next guest is an undersecretary for the Department of Tourism in charge of the tourism regulation, coordination, and resource generation. He is a traveler and a passionate advocate of Philippine culture and biodiversity. He gained development perspectives through academics degrees, MBS Community Development and MA Regional Development Planning from the University of the Philippines, and a graduate diploma in Regional Development Planning and Management from the Universitat Dortmund in Germany. Friends, help me welcome Undersecretary Robert Alabado III.
Okay, good afternoon to everyone. Okay, so I'm in my native attire. You may be in your barong, but I may be in my lovely Northern Luzon outfit. Anyway, I would like to greet our very good Secretary Mon Lopez. Very pleasant good afternoon, sir. Yusek Bless, hello po, kamusta po kayo? And of course, for SB Corp, the people behind the show who's now celebrating 30 years of public service. The tourism sector thanks you because, as you know, as you have mentioned, the tourism sector is composed of mostly small and even micro, small and medium enterprises. So the help that SB Corp has been giving us during this pandemic is tremendous. So thank you very much, and blessings to each one of you in the SB Corp family. So I would like to present now my presentation for this afternoon. I'd like to share with you how are we going to revitalize the tourism industry in the new normal. Can you see the screen? Can I have feedback? Is the screen okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so revitalizing the tourism industry, we are badly hit. And I would like to share with you my outline, okay, intro to the tourism industry, what's our growth recovery, and how are we going to be utilizing digital technology. And perhaps it would be interesting for our tourism sector here, what do tourists really want right now? Because the perceptions of our travelers from 2019 and now it's 2021, it's completely different. And all of us have to adjust to those preferences. And then how can we adapt to their wants? So like what was said earlier, 8.3 million. We had a golden year in 2019. And Secretary Bernadette Romulo Puyat was very happy that we were targeting by 2020, we should be more than 9 million. And by 2021, it should be around 10 million. But unfortunately, everything went down when COVID came. But these are the statistics that you can say that this was pre-COVID. Ang tawag na nga namin, ano yan BC. Parang that's 2019 BC. It's not, it's before COVID. So during that time, there were a lot of travel industry disruptors. When we say travel industry disruptors, you have Airbnb. I know that the accommodation sector, this is a very big issue, but this was a time where easy access to different people who would like to share their property. So ito po yung tinatawag na nating the shared economy. If you have an extra room, then go to Airbnb. You can share it with others who will be willing to pay. Then we had online booking systems, we had Grab, all of these transportation system, hindi na kinakailangan magpa-reserve sa mga physical reservations, but you could use your phones. Just everything was digital. And of course, there was Facebook. And so every marketing was there in Facebook. And we were looking at so many different disruptors that even us in DOT, we had problems because we were not actually prepared. Also, the policies of the government during that time were not prepared on all of these disruptors. Masyado mabilis ang panahon. But COVID came. So we're now back to almost not zero. We are recovering now. But the road to recovery is slow because of all of these new findings about the virus. So anyway, the impact on the tourism was a big ouch. So no more travel. Until now, foreign travelers are not allowed to visit our country. And at the same time, we have a lot of restrictions per LGU right now, because it's not because per LGU, but the different situation of the COVID pandemic in each LGUs will affect it. So restrictions are there. Kaya we had work from home and online selling as alternatives. But if we're going to look at the plan after the pandemic, Secretary Bernard Romulo Puyat immediately made a team. I was part of it, and we were going to make the TRRP, the Tourism Response and Recovery Plan. So it took us maybe 2 months to make this, and it had a lot of consultations. We were talking to hoteliers, we were talking to from the sales to the managers, to the tour guides, to the tour operators, to the travel agencies, to all of the value chain of the tourism industry. We had to consult, we had to check on how are they doing and what would be their ideas on how they can recover. So we were able to have these key outcomes. Number one, we have to secure the livelihoods and provide adequate social services. That's why we have a partnership with SB Corp, because we need to have more money. Ang partner namin pala dito, it's not SB Corp, but it was Dole for the Bayanihan too. But in the sustained business operations, it was SB Corp. So we had one of the best conditions pagdating sa loans. And I would like to thank SB Corp for providing us, for our tourism industry players who are here. I hope that you know the conditions that were set by SB Corp, and they're one of the best here in the Philippines right now. We're going to be building back better. So that means we have to invest. Our industry we have to invest on appropriate technology so that we can have a new normal environment, then enhanced marketing and product development. So this now comes to the digital technology that we've been talking all about. So if we're going to translate these into action, this is the new condition of our market. They want it nature-based. They want open spaces right now. They want experiential. It's not enough to just see it, but they want to experience it. So an example of experiential is, if dati-dati, they would just like to eat in a restaurant, now they don't want just to eat. They want to know the ingredients. They know how to cook. How is it cooked? They want to observe. They want to be hands-on. They want to experience making or creating that dish. Kaya mas matagal na sila sa isang area. And of course, they don't want crowds. So this is now an opportunity for our entrepreneurs, those who would like to have VIP, itong mga exclusive dining rooms. Because our families right now don't want na makihalo sa iba because of this physical distancing, and there's caution. So they would prefer now to have their own customized tours. So what we have been doing is capacity building. This is the main concern of the Philippine tourism industry. We have to quickly adapt to the changes that are undergoing here. So we have partnered also with DTI on upskilling, reskilling, and providing new skills for our tourism workers working on the new normal. And of course, we have been always been giving orientations and webinars for our tourism establishments. Next is, we're able to provide financial assistance. And this is with the help of SB Corp and our Dole. Ang next po is development of new tourism products. I think this is where we have to look into now. We are now introspective. We're looking at what do we have that we haven't really developed yet. I think this is the way to go right now. And if you thought that DOT was sleeping last year, just look at the awards that the Philippines had. And this is in 2020. World's leading tourist attraction. We are the best, world's best diving site, destination. So we are on top of the situation in terms of marketing. And at the same time, health and safety protocols. So I hope that our tourism industry would be so kind as to understand that health and safety protocols is the key for us to rebuild the traveler's confidence or the confidence to travel. Kaya po, we want them to be safe and secure. So these are the things that DOT itself was doing. We had our own 24/7 tourist response teams. So we had teams manning all of the social media platforms, be it on Twitter, Facebook, Viber, all of these. We were open, especially during the first few months, to all requests of our tourists who were maybe stranded. Then work from home made us utilize virtual offices. I hope that when we say virtual offices, there are programs, there are platforms that would really integrate office work as if you have you are in one space. Next is online training courses. We're there, so we've had hundreds of training courses for the past 18 months and reaching Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, and we discovered that we had more clients or more attendees using online platforms than we would do face-to-face. So if it's just for knowledge level, then it is very effective. But when skills level na, medyo problema tayo dyan. That's why we are looking at hybrid training. Ibig sabihin, some are face-to-face, but most would be online. So we have tried to innovate things. Then, itong mga utilization of the apps. Tourist management apps. If you go to Baguio, they're going to check how many have come in their city and what documents. And they'll be able to trace you wherever you are if there are some missing documents or kung nag-positive ka bigla. So this is now an innovation that we would like other destinations to adopt. So marketing now, we're virtual tours. We are marketing via various platforms. B2B, it has been done. B2B via virtual. We have had the Tourism Promotions Board has had virtual B2B. We have been talking to international buyers. Local sellers are talking with our international sellers, and it works. So if we're looking now at our MSMEs, ano nang gagawin natin? So number one, let's adapt present skills to new uses. And this has been done all over. As you have seen in the previous video, a lot of resources were being used to be able to cope with the situation. So we had tour guides who suddenly became airport receptionists. We had tour operations going into online marketing. And what were they selling? They were selling the products that therefore their partners in communities were also selling to tourists before. So partners pa rin sila, but this time on another level. Before it was the tour operators were bringing tourists to buy from the communities. Now the tour operators are now the marketing agents of these communities towards a new market. Ito na yung mga nagpapadeliver. Let's adapt infrastructures to new uses. We had experience now, hotels here in NCR are being converted into quarantine and isolation facilities. And that is very good because it keeps them afloat. But another one is hotels are now being labeled, especially in Boracay. We're looking at Boracay na gawin siyang workation facility. So if you're online naman ang iyong trabaho, why not have a vacation and go around? So for our MSMEs, internet right now is a must. So you have to invest on internet because everything now is online. Let's adapt the present resources to new needs. Okay, so alfresco dining, dati-dati we were very good in air conditioning, but now our market would like fresh air. Iwas virus tayo ngayon. And a lot has changed. Tour vans before are now catering to BPO service vans or other companies. And I was talking to a transport group in Panay Island, and that was how they are surviving right now. Dati-dati tour vans, tourist vans, ngayon they're catering to companies at a very reasonable price so that they keep their operations going and provide their drivers jobs pa rin. And open spaces to farm space. So we've been talking earlier about being tech savvy, and this is what we're doing right now. For our hotels, for our areas, let's try to do hybrid meetings. Business meetings are still possible, but we have to do it in a hybrid way. For example, I know of a hotel. Parang, okay, for a board meeting, that the top honchos, the board of directors will be on a boardroom. Actually, it's not a boardroom, but actually a big room, almost like a hotel, a hall. Then they do their online meeting there, but the staff are actually outside in their own rooms. But they can do face-to-face as long as they follow the IATF protocols. So it is possible to have meetings. So right now, we have to create new partnerships. When we say partnerships, we have to have shared facilities. I'm thinking of maybe in the future, we're going to have, can we share buses? Tour operators. If medyo kulang yung ating mga tourists, can we share vans? Can we share vehicles? Kasi minsan pare-pareho lang naman yung pupuntahan. So this is now the time to create partnerships. If you can see in my screen, frenemies. Sometimes you're friends, sometimes you're enemies because you're competitors. But I have seen hotels, small hotels, big hotels here in Manila, giving or sharing their best employees to their competitors. Why? Because they can no longer afford to operate. And what do? They contact their nearest competitor and offer their best people to that hotel. Bakit? They do not want the industry to lose the people that we need. Kaya they have to share these people. So in digital, it's this motto. You have to adapt or fade away. So these are the new preferences of our tourists. This was a 2020 study made by AIM and DOT and Guide to the Philippines. Number one, our clients right now would like convenience and they want contact reduction, less touch. Then these are the percentages of the survey who would prefer booking trips, who would like to book online, and at the same time expect the enterprise to have their own self-service processes. And these are a lot of people looking at avoiding the touch mentality. So we have now to adjust to their wants. So number one, do you see the screen? It's just a screen, but we have to be visible online. We are campaigning that all of our tourism establishments should be visible online. Create your own websites, create your own stories so that more people will now see you. And this is what we have to do. Create your parang advertisement. Advertising promotions is now online. Next is you have to maximize the social media platforms to reach your target audience. I hope that right now we're into domestic tourism, but I would like to go back to what if pwede ng international na pumasok sa atin dito. Do you know that there are a lot of social media platforms that are not Google, na hindi Viber? There are a lot of other platforms that can be used. If you're going to do a search in China, they're not using Google, they're using Weibo. So if you're not in Weibo, then they will not find your establishment. If you're Korean, if you want to look for Koreans, then you go to Naver. That's their search engine. So you have to look kung sino ba talaga ang inyong mga audience. Because when we use the digital platform, then it has to be, if you're into fishing, we call it match the hatch. If you're looking for a specific target, then you must look for their own preference and what they're using. Next is use all available apps just for your health and safety protocols. So for restaurants and even checking in, we have some clients now looking for, wala kayong QR code on just registering, because no one wants to touch the ball pen that you do not know who touched it before you. So look for these available apps, and perhaps you could also do it yourselves. And utilize online transactions. Be DOT accredited. Online po, madali lang tayo online. And you can create your own communities and payment systems. I learned this from a Korean friend of mine. Sabi, if you're in a hotel, you should create your own community upon checking in. So how do you do that? KakaoTalk. He said that in his hotel, he had a, once you register, automatically you are put into their own community, the hotel community, and he can sell you things there. And he can ask, okay, 5 o'clock, you can go here and you can have merienda. So he can have all of those promotions in his own. So why don't we maximize it? Then we have to learn new skills on digitalization. And that is not enough, because sometimes behavior and ethics may have to also adapt. Ang isang reklamo ng ating mga kliyente abroad is they would email us and it takes us 24 hours to answer back. And they say that's not possible. It's okay 2 hours, it's okay maybe 6 hours, but 24 hours we're making our travel plans. And if you're into digitalization, then you're almost on 24 hours. So sometimes you have to adapt to that. You have to immediately respond to the needs of your clients. So it took a virus for this revolution. So welcome to the low-touch tourism industry. Like the bamboo, the Philippine tourism industry is just like, we're resilient, we bend, and we prosper, and madali tayong kumalat. The tourism industry is one of the most resilient and abundant and easy entry pagdating sa trabaho. From a simple fruit vendor to a high-end hotelier, there is a job for every one of us. So, like the bamboo, we are unbreakable. So, from the tourism industry and from the Department of Tourism, daghang salamat and thank you. Digital technology is the way to go in our tourism industry. I hope that everyone has listened to the previous speakers and know the importance. After nito, you have access to SB Corp on the loans that you need, on how to make your business profitable. And recovery is the start of it. So sama-sama ho tayo. Here in our tourism industry, we are unbreakable. Maraming salamat po.
Resilient and unbreakable indeed. Thank you very, very much, Yusek Roberto Alabado III. And our next speaker is one of the most prominent leaders in the tourism industry. She is the chairman and president of Raja Travel Corporation, which has evolved from a travel agency to a travel corporation over the years. It has added the Tourism Knowledge Center, tourism site management, and meetings and events to its roster of departments, among others. Recently, Miss Eileen, along with her team at Raja Travel, launched the Travel Academy, which addresses the on-the-job training needs of college students through its online practicum program. Miss Eileen has received several awards, like the Global Peace Awards for Empowered Women in Tourism, organized by the International Institute for Peace through Tourism India in partnership with the UNWTO, received in 2016. She has been the president of the ASEAN Tourism Association, the Philippine Travel Agencies Association, Philippine IATA Agents Travel Association, and IATA Agency Program Joint Council. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm round of applause for Miss Eileen Clemente.
Thank you, Carlo. I am now sharing my screen. Hold on. There. I hope you can see my screen now. My original topic is supposed to be women in tourism, but as I have seen the different speakers that have gone before me, I thought of just moving it a little bit to share my other views. No? In that regard, first of all, I would like to thank all the officials of DTI, officials of DOT, and other officials of government agencies that are here today. And I hope that that being said, the protocols have been observed so that since their names have been mentioned quite frequently today already. So just to keep it short, I hope all protocols have been observed. So just to mention again what was said by Carlo, if you look at the travel agency, this is the usual operations of a travel agency. Usually catering to just leisure services, the documentations, and having human resources in the executive office. But actually, this is all that we have. We have everything in different platforms catering to different types of services, including corporate travel, which is also very different because it's more of a consultancy service, and the ticketing is near fulfillment. Also, we have in terms of meetings and events, we have that separately because, again, the needs are separate. We also have our web platform, non-web platform. We also have our web platform for B2B and much. So when you talk about e-commerce, it can be about a B2B platform where it's not really seen similar to what Lazada or Shopee would be. So our biggest B2B or our web-based platform is actually more on the corporate. That being said, I show all of these to you because everyone has been talking about the storefront or just the front-end services that requires digitalization, e-commerce, but actually a travel business, I'm not just talking about the travel agency, actually has more than just, it's not just the storefront. And we are aggregators, we are part of the value chain, we are also part of the supply chain. So what does that mean? It means that we interact with so many other clients, and we just don't talk about clients being the end consumer. More than that, we appreciate very much how SB Corp, how DTI, and how DOT has been helping us, but the component of digitalization has to spread further than that, including other government agencies, especially in terms of the fact that we interact with the LGUs, with BIR, and all of those. So even if we put e-commerce there, it doesn't save us from a lot because there's a lot of government entities that require a lot of paperwork that can simply go away. So we're hoping that this can also be addressed by having a good partnership with SB Corp, DTI, and DOT. So just to show you our other, another way of looking at our business, these are all our businesses. Our travel shop is the one that's really the typical storefront. No, the rest, the travel academy, the tourism site management, the tourism knowledge center, are those that are not really prevalent or seen, but just as equally important, especially the tourism knowledge center, where we are doing a lot of research and putting all the different researches together. As I have mentioned, like the different government agencies, like the DTI, can be very automated in itself, but when it comes to being automated together or interoperable with other government agencies and with the private sector, that is something that must be worked on together. So just to show you, although it's pretty obvious and has been discussed how much tourism has gone down so far, but the total contribution has been higher than the regular GDP of any country, no? And it's been growing. The reason is e-commerce for us, or digitalization and similar, is really just a tool. Humanity exists very much in it, and we have to put it in perspective that these are just tools for us to use, for us to go further. And also, in terms of women, because my topic was supposed to be women, 54% of the industry is actually composed of women. However, if you look at this chart, most of the women are actually not in the highest ranking positions, but designated to be in the lower positions. So it's only those that have the darker elements that are where we stand most equally now. In terms of those enrolled and graduates, just to show you a brief picture. So we have a very good size of female population in this industry. So that is very good. And which is what is espoused also in the Women's Initiative Declaration of the World Travel and Tourism Council. The World Travel and Tourism Council is the biggest private organization that is the counterpart more or less of UNWTO in terms of what is in terms of moving the world of tourism, no? And we have here this picture because we wanted to show that even in the days of pandemic, this was just in April 27, 2021, that we still continue to progress the different issues apart from, just having to talk about the COVID, but we even talk about women and diversity and all of that, including sustainability, which is a big part of our advocacy. And I'm somewhere there behind Martina Navratilova. So just to show that picture as well. So just to also mention, these are some of the members of WTTC, and only those that have been invited in the top positions of the company are the ones involved in this. So what are the guidelines for the private sector that have been espoused for the women empowerment? No? So they want to increase representation in leadership, invest in programs that develop skills, identify opportunities to reduce gender pay gaps, and share progress versus commitment on an annual basis. And just to mention that the Tourism Promotions Board is also a member of this, sorry, not a member, but a destination partner of this organization. And for the public sector, it hopes to implement public policies and incentives for companies, assign high-level public officials for gender diversity and inclusion, propose legislative reforms, and remove barriers for women's progress. So just to show that in the era of pandemic, we also believe that agility is the number one issue why we cannot move forward. And it has been mentioned by the other speakers that it's important to be dynamic, to adjust, and so on. But the ability to do that on a corporate level and on a transactional level is just as equally important. So how do you adapt to changes right now? And have you done any adaptation, or is it just by person that this is being done? So in our company, what we have done, as mentioned by Carlo also, that we have created our travel academy even before the pandemic. But we have made use of this very much during this period by holding our remote practicum program, turning our operations people into mentors. And we have been servicing about 20 schools per semester and holding about 600 to 700 students per semester. So that's 3 semesters, the summer term, the first term, and the second term. So we are now starting that whole cycle again. And we just started this in October, and it has been working very well for us. So another important thing to think of is adapting and implementing all the different changes, no? Making it very flat as well, making it very coordinated. Also, in terms of communication, internally as well as externally. Externally has been talked about by the other speakers, but I also talk about things internally where you can change some of your operations and even the way you do business. These are just some of the ways that you can do that. So apart from that, we also encourage a lot of continuous learning, as not just for us to provide to our students, but also to our internal team. So we do that as well. Because if you don't adapt yourself, then you're going to die, because that's not the next normal anymore. So in doing that, you're also saving, in terms of what you loan, you are also able to save in terms of operations and so on, without again forgetting the humanity element in it. No, it's not about just moving to something online, but actually combining humanity along with the online. So again, we stay connected in different ways. We talk in platforms such as this. And again, just to jumpstart the tourism industry, there's a different way of doing it. And just to show you what the World Travel and Tourism has collated, no, that these are the average ages of recovery. Diseases and outbreaks being 19.4 months. But again, it depends on each individual country whether it will be a V-shaped or a U-shaped recovery. For instance, in the Philippines, is the contact tracing really being done properly, or is it the contact tracing once they get to the hospital? That's one. Secondly, if we're really doing a lockdown, is it a lockdown for just for non-Filipinos, or letting in Filipinos and not letting in foreign tourists? Kasi hindi naman namimili ang virus kung Pinoy ka o hindi eh. So it's either you close or you don't close for a period of time, fix ventilation, make sure that the proper health protocols are being applied, so that we have a V-shaped recovery rather than what we are having now, which is a U-shaped recovery. And most importantly is that we have the right vaccination program that is happening. That's why the other countries already have a V-shaped recovery, is because they had the herd immunity within a quarter, within a period of actually a month, but I'm just saying it's a quarter. But for us, it's like as low as 6 months already. And it's very slow in terms of progressing the vaccination instead of having a PCR testing. Or if you have both, then how do you make it work? So again, we follow the health and safety protocols and whatever technology is out there to ensure that we can have a mobility happening around the Philippines. So again, just to mention some of the tourism bubbles that have been out there or going to begin hopefully soon, these are just the bubbles. So we also in ASEAN or ASEANTA, we are talking about how to begin travel bubbles within the ASEANTA. So as mentioned already, there are already some of the specialized markets, workations and staycations being number one, just because of the fact that the travel has been restricted, especially now. So those are the two things that are flying right now. But again, once that things begin to recover, it's going to have a surge or an upward trend before it tapers off. So the point right now for us is that there are no transactions to having so many transactions before it tapers down. So how do we all handle that? So just to make mention some of the smaller groups that we have Sweet Life of Mangoes, where, as mentioned by Yusek Robbie, there are different ways now of moving throughout the different tours. Also, we have other smaller groups that pertain to certain interests. No? And then again, just to restart the business, comply with the health and safety protocols, and then apply for the tourism accreditation, and then identify the establishment's carrying capacity. And again, I will mention ventilation, because it will repeat over and over again that we will have these moments of spurts of COVID virus infection if we don't really fix different ventilation systems across the different buildings, stores, and whatnot in the different parts of the country. And again, just to save also on whatever you loan, then use it properly, review and revise your operational process. And then again, your employee training, and then have your revised tariffs, promotions, and promotion materials, including distribution channels. And then inform guests in advance the establishment's health and safety protocols. So we just put a few things here to support technology in some of the contactless interaction for business, some touch points that are not really necessary, so you can turn it into and have some technological solutions. For example, even the online health declaration forms, even as you go to the airport, one thing I'm very frustrated because I just came in from the US a few weeks ago. There was a different form by the DOT, the Bureau of Customs, the Bureau of Immigration, and so on, because they are not interoperable. So the word that we need to really work on here is interoperability. They can exist separately, but they can be interoperable, rather than a customer suffering from having to fill up almost a similar form over and over again. So these are just some of those. Payments, of course, can be done online. Communications can also be changed. And with that, I end my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much, Ms. Eileen. Staples is a new program of SB Corp for MSMEs in the food supply chain to address food sustainability. Staples will be expounded by our next speaker. Mr. Santiago S. Lim is the new Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of Small Business Corporation. He is formerly a member of the Board of Directors of SB Corp since March of 2018. Some of the highlights of his previous work experiences include being President, CEO, and founder of Strawberry Foods Corporation, brand ambassador of Globe Telecom, and shareholder, board director, and consultant of various private companies. Friends, a virtual round of applause for Mr. Santi Lim.
Thank you, Carlo, for that nice introduction. Before proceeding to my presentation, I would just like first to acknowledge our DTI Secretary Ramon Lopez, our acting chair and Undersecretary Bless Lantayona, our board of directors, to our president and CEO, Ms. Luna Cacanando, and our officers and employees, to our dear panelists, sorry for the technical issue. Of course, to our panelists and our prospective FMCG partners, to our guests, fellow Filipinos, good afternoon. Can you please share? Yeah, Staples is our newest loan product. Actually, this is our 11th loan product under our portfolio. It's short for Sustaining Trade Access to Primary Food and Linked to Enterprises. This is our loan product for MSMEs in the retail food markets value chain that are in the supply chain of an SB Corp accredited fast-moving consumer good manufacturer, producer, and supplier. Also, down to the retail segments of the market. Why is staples relevant? Right now, under the pandemic, food sufficiency and availability is an issue. So we have these three objectives. First is to assist MSMEs replenish their working capital and fund other business purposes. Second, to sustain the food supply chains and maintain food sufficiency and affordability, and to save jobs and increase business of MSMEs to make a bigger contribution to our economy. Who are eligible to apply for these new staples? We will qualify MSMEs in the retail food business sector, which are part of the supply chain of our accredited FMCG food and beverage manufacturer. They may be a food producer, trader, or repacker. Those retailers and wholesalers of food items of B Corp accredited FMCGs actually focusing on sari-sari stores, public market stalls, convenience stores, grocery stores, even bakeries, micro to small scale food producers or processors, and vendors of farm food produce and seafood. Those who are major players in the supply chain of SB Corp accredited fast-moving food manufacturers, their distributors and dealers may qualify also for this loan product, so long as their asset size fall within the definition of the small or medium enterprise. How can MSMEs qualify for staples? First, they must be a micro, small, or medium enterprise in the retail food sector. By micro, we define them as those with asset size of less than 3 million. For small, asset size of less than 15 million. And for medium enterprise, an asset size of less than 100 million, excluding the value of the land. They must be a part of the food supply chain of an accredited FMCG food manufacturer. For sari-sari stores and other retail channels, this should be in good standing for the past year. And for distributors and dealers and the bigger sari-sari stores, they must have an asset size of a small or medium enterprise and must be in good standing for 3 years for loans of 1 million above. They must be 100% Filipino-owned or at least 60% Filipino-owned for corporations with foreign ownership. And lastly, they must have no unresolved major negative credit findings on the applicant and on the enterprise. By major negative credit findings, we mean that there are no unresolved issues more than 20% of their loan size. These are our accreditation requirements for our partners. First, this should belong to the top 1,000 corporations of the Philippines. By this definition, they are large enterprises. And this should have a nationwide network of at least 20 distributors and at least 100,000 sari-sari stores digitized into their Salesforce automation system. These are our initial criteria, but we can be flexible to accommodate more large enterprises so that we can reach out to more sari-sari stores. What are the loan terms for staples? Similar to our Bayanihan Cares program, our staple loans have zero interest fee. There is no collateral. And the loanable amount, as I will explain later, shall be subject to review upon subsequent renewals based on their sales performance. We segmentized our borrowers into three. The first one is the small sari-sari stores with minimum annual sale of 500,000. The second tier or segment is the big sari-sari stores, the mini grocery convenience stores with a minimum annual sale of 2 million. And the last one, the bigger ones or the medium sized with a minimum annual sale of 20 million. For the loan package, we use this formula to compute for the loan size. For the segment 1, we will compute their loan size based on 2% of their annual sales. And for the second one, 2.25% of their annual sales. And the last one, 2.5% of their annual sales, but not to exceed 5 million. So this would mean that loan size can be as low as 10,000 pesos and a maximum of 5 million pesos, depending on the segment. On the repayment terms, we have 3 months for the first one, 4 months for the second one, and 6 months for the third one. As mentioned earlier, we will revisit this repayment term and extend it to a year based on their performance and repayment. And since there is no interest and no collateral, we will be just charging an upfront service fee of 3%, which is inclusive already of all fees, processing cost, and the documentary stamp tax. So what are the documentary requirements for all these borrowers? Similar to Bayanihan Cares, we try to simplify further the application process to make it easier for the borrowers in consideration that they are already the accounts of the fast-moving consumer goods partners. So there is already an initial vetting for them. So we will trust our partners in terms of their capacity to pay and to use the loans wisely. Similar also to the Bayanihan Cares, the registration or the application will be online through our borrower registry system. As mentioned through the presentation of our group head for IT, it will still undergo through a 7-step process. We will just require the usual government-issued ID, the bank account or electronic money account, the barangay business permit for 2019 or 2020, and 2 photos of business signage and inventories or fixed assets. We will use these photos to verify that the business is existing because there is no physical face-to-face transaction. So we will rely on the documents that the borrower will submit to us. For the tier 2, on top of the, or in lieu of the barangay permit, we will now require mayor's permit for 2019 or 2020. And again, 2 photos of their business signage and inventories or fixed assets. For the medium-sized borrowers, on top of the other requirements, we will require mayor's permit for the past 3 years. And for loans of 1 million and above, up to 5 million, they must submit their latest BIR file balance sheet for 2020 to ascertain that the business is not a large enterprise. And for corporations and partnerships, we will require a secretary certificate authorizing to borrow the president, or the alternative CFO or managing partner as the principal borrower. So we'll be very visible in different platforms. We have a call center hotline, and we have a toll-free nationwide number. And we have also our Facebook page where you can see the different loan products that we are also offering. And you can email us also to our sbcorporation at sbcorp.gov.ph email address. And we also have our website at www.sbcorp.gov.ph. And for those who have difficulty in accessing online, we can offer our 75 desk offices nationwide to assist those borrowers that have poor internet connection on their localities. So before I end, let me share this anonymous proverb or quote that businesses survive not simply because the companies are good, but because the entrepreneurs do not give up. Filipinos are very resilient, and with the right stimulus package that the government through DTI and through SB Corp that we are providing, surely we can overcome this pandemic. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Santi Lim. Now, as we conclude our program, let's listen to the closing remarks of the head for strategy, policy, and system sector. Let's all welcome Ms. Josefina Flores.
As we end our e-forum today, we hope that you will not forget the most important takeaway. That is, for businesses to survive the effects of this pandemic, entrepreneurs must be innovative, creative, and brave enough to step up and adopt new technology and other business solutions that are now available even for small entrepreneurs. As our theme goes, the new normal is digital. This, of course, is easier said than done. For MSMEs, the digital challenge may be a daunting and challenging prospect, but it's time to take the bull by its horns, so to speak. We would like to remind our dear entrepreneurs that you are the backbone of the Philippine economy. You provide employment to millions of our countrymen, thereby giving them the means to provide for their families' needs. Your survival and success, therefore, will redound to our economy and the welfare of Filipinos. Remember, businesses survive not simply because the companies are good, but because the entrepreneurs do not give up. Rest assured that SB Corp will always be here to support our entrepreneurs' aspirations and business success, not only in times of growth and prosperity, but more so during difficult times as we are experiencing now. On behalf of the SB Corp family, allow me to thank Secretary Lopez for sharing his precious time and his unwavering support to SB Corp in the pursuit of its mandate. For Yusek Bles Lantayona, for providing much needed guidance to the management as the acting chairman of the board. We would also like to give special thanks to our speakers who have so generously shared their time, experiences, and expertise, knowledge with us today. From the private sector, Mr. Victor Tria of PLDT, and for powering, yes, a very special mention, for powering our e-forum with data connection with 500 Mbps at that. And Ms. Eileen Clemente of Raja Tours, who spoke for the women in tourism. To our colleagues in government, Dr. Francis Mark Kimba of PIDS, ASIC Jean Pacheco of DTI, and USEC Roberto Labado of DOT. Our clients and stakeholders who gave their testimonials, especially Dr. Vivian Sarabia, who continue inspiring us to do better in our financial services to the sector. And last but not the least, our very own IT group head, Ms. Evelyn Felias, for sharing with us SB Corp's digital journey, and EVP Santilin for our new loan product staples. At this point, we would like to thank everyone who joined us today. We hope that it has been an afternoon well spent. Stay safe and well. Maraming salamat po at mabuhay tayong lahat. Ako po si Georgie Flores, ang inyong lingkod mula sa Small Business Corporation.
Thank you very, very much, Ma'am Georgie. Thank you very much. And thank you to all of you for being part of today's program. We do hope that in this new normal, we can all work together to survive, adapt, and thrive, and collaborate with practical tools and business solutions applicable in this digital era. This has been your host, Carlo Lorenzo. Keep safe and God bless everyone.
Bago na ang mundo, handa ka bang bahagi nito? Dito lahat ay konektado, lahat ay pwedeng umasenso. Maraming bagong oportunidad, potensyal na mapapalawak. Mapanegosyo o consumer, kasama ka sa biyaheng ito. With market access, digitalization, and logistics integration, sulong Pilipinas. Madali at ligtas, walang hassle. Madali, mabilis, sigurado. Nasa kamay mo ang lahat. Basta e-commerce, sabay-sabay ang pag-angat. Basta e-commerce, isang click na lang yan. Online selling at online shopping, lahat ng iyong hanap-hanap ay nasa'yo na sa isang iglap. Maraming bagong paraan, kung trabaho ang iyong kailangan. Mundo ang iyong merkado, ipakita mo kung ano ang kaya mo. With market access, digitalization, and logistics integration, sulong